Aelin the dragon paced restlessly through the vast library, her movements sharp and uneasy. Tension clung to her every step as regret weighed heavily on her mind. The more she replayed her decision, the clearer it became sending Sejin to the 67th floor had been a terrible mistake. No matter how she tried to rationalize it, doubt gnawed at her. A tower farmer facing that floor's locust infestation alone, how long could anyone survive? Especially now, when the creatures were growing more lethal by the second. Without warning, the crystal orb beside her flared with an ominous red glow. A system prompt appeared, asking whether Dragon Lady Aelin wished to remove a communication block. She hesitated only briefly before selecting yes. The image that formed made her sigh instantly. It was her grandfather, Kaiser. The moment he appeared, he dropped all dignity and began apologizing profusely, bowing repeatedly and begging for forgiveness. He admitted his fault over and over, pleading with her not to block him ever again. Aelin barely reacted. Her thoughts were still tangled in worry. The scene replayed in her mind Sejin descending to the 67th floor as a mid-level manager, tasked with suppressing the Locust disaster. Whether he would survive at all remained uncertain, and despite being a tower administrator, Aelin was powerless to intervene. That helplessness hurt more than anything. Kaiser noticed her expression and felt a pang of disappointment. Even he couldn't help her right now. Then, suddenly, realization struck him. "TCH, why are you worrying?" Kaiser said firmly. "That boy isn't ordinary." He reminded her who Sejin truly was, the greatest solo farmer the tower had ever produced. Someone who had entered the Black Tower alone and survived the 99th floor with nothing but his bare hands. An achievement that even dragons acknowledged as extraordinary. Sejin had influenced countless beings, turning strangers into allies, accelerating his growth in ways no one else could replicate. And above all else, he was the chosen representative of the Black Dragon. Chosen by Aelin herself. "So tell me," Kaiser continued, smiling knowingly, "how could you doubt your own judgment?" The scene shifted. Sejin calmly chewed on detoxifying green onions as Theo launched himself at waves of purple locusts, gnawing on green onions mid-attack. Despite the chaos, their teamwork was seamless. Kaiser's voice echoed in Aelin's thought Sejin would be fine. He was unmatched. We watched Sejin tear through enemies using his dagger and scythe, clearing everything in his path with ruthless efficiency. Nearby, Theo paused for a moment, suddenly realizing something. What would Sejin have done if he hadn't packed extra detoxifying green onions? Sejin simply smiled, gave Theo a confident thumbs up, and praised him for his quick thinking. At the same time, the Rabbit Princess stood firm, weaving defensive magic to shield her allies while deflecting incoming locusts. She knew red locusts were already dangerous, but purple ones were far worse. Their appearance meant the infestation had reached a terrifying new level. Calling upon her water affinity, she unleashed a powerful water cannon, blasting the locusts out of the air. A system notification appeared. Guardian Princess and Guardian Theo had defeated a purple locust. Sejin received 50% of the earned experience. Sejin steadied his breathing, his panic fading. Instead, excitement crept in. This wasn't just a crisis, it was an opportunity. Baby Bear, no longer small, returned to his towering form, gripping his massive wooden weapon as he crushed purple locusts with overwhelming force. Sejin even hurled his axe like a thunder god, calling it back effortlessly. Then, suddenly, a purple locust lunged at Sejin from behind. Theo's heart nearly stopped, but Sejin didn't flinch. Flames erupted around him, the flame of companionship surged forth, wrapping his body in blazing armor. The locusts disintegrated the moment they touched him. Sejin smiled calmly. "I'm fine." Theo and the Rabbit Princess stared in shock. Sejin explained that before descending to the 67th floor, the flame had granted him both protection and companionship. He wasn't the weakest anymore, not even close. Baby Bear cheered proudly, calling Sejin his dad with pure admiration. Even the rabbit princess couldn't help but think if the black dragon had existed back in the Red Ribbon Kingdom, everything might have turned out differently. But Sejin's expression soon hardened. "No matter what," he said, scanning the battlefield, "there are still too many of them." A massive swarm engulfed a tower-like structure nearby, dissolving it in seconds. The battle continued relentlessly. Fatigue crept in. Theo noticed their supplies thinning. Even the strongest warrior rabbit began to slow. Sejin clenched his jaw. Baby Bear was barely holding on, relying purely on raw strength. If only the Minotaurs were here. If only Iona were present, and then it clicked. Sejin's eyes lit up. "I can bring her here." Without hesitation, Sejin pulled out the interdimensional key he had acquired after saving Bat-Bat. Purple locusts surged toward him from every direction, but he didn't retreat. Instead, he activated the key. Space twisted violently as a dimensional gate burst open. Sejin slammed his fist against the glowing barrier and shouted urgently, calling for Iona to open the door. On the other side, the hamster wizard froze in shock. She rushed forward, flinging the gate open with a panicked expression, completely unprepared for what she saw. At first, she assumed Sejin had come to check on the upgrade. She muttered nervously, explaining that the room was almost finished. But then she noticed the air. It was thick, toxic, suffocating. Before Sejin could explain, Iona's sharp eyes caught sight of the forest beyond the gate completely overrun. Purple locusts swarmed everywhere, and a massive structure nearby had already been eaten away to nothing. Then the locusts noticed her. Their attention shifted instantly. But Iona didn't step back. Her playful demeanor vanished, replaced by cold focus. Gripping her staff tightly, she began channeling energy. Purple lightning crackled violently along its surface. The magic surged higher and higher. And then she released it. Giga lightning. The sky exploded into brilliant purple light. Bolts rained down like divine punishment, obliterating countless locusts in midair. They burst apart like fireworks, scattering ash and sparks across the battlefield. Even Sejin stood frozen in disbelief. Baby Bear cheered wildly, jumping up and down as the others stared in awe. The rabbit princess smiled warmly, while the warrior rabbit silently observed, deeply impressed. Theo, unlike any ordinary cat, was utterly mesmerized. As Iona descended slowly from the sky, lightning still tearing through the swarm, system notifications flooded in. The system had updated. Sejin's role as a mid-level manager was confirmed. His mission was now clear: eradicate the purple locusts infesting the 67th floor. Out of 700 million locusts, 50,000 had already been eliminated. Rewards: 3 million experience points, 50,000 tower coins. Failure condition: Sejin would be unable to return until the quest was completed. Sejin swallowed hard. Not because of the rewards, but because 699,950,000 locusts remained. Baby Bear shrank back to his smaller form. Everyone stared silently at the floating system window, unsure how to react. Iona broke the silence, reassuring them that once the locust population dropped further, the purple variants would revert to red, becoming far easier to deal with. But the toxic air finally caught up to her. Her face paled, her knees buckled. Before she could collapse, Theo lunged forward and caught her gently, laying her down near the dimensional gate. He urged her to eat a detoxifying green onion immediately. Under the influence of the poison-induced hallucination, Theo appeared impossibly heroic in Iona's eyes. She praised his magnificent magic and expressed relief that they were allies. As she nibbled on the green onion like a tiny hamster, her face flushed bright red. Nearby, the warrior rabbit scanned the area carefully before reporting that no locusts were currently nearby. Relief washed over Sejin. They needed rest. Sejin suggested retreating into the dimensional space he had unlocked. Inside the space, the atmosphere changed completely. The Rabbit Princess, Warrior Rabbit, and Baby Bear stepped in first, their eyes widening in amazement. When Sejin entered with Theo and Iona, even he was stunned. The space had transformed into something warm, cozy, and festive, decorated like a perfect winter holiday retreat. Sejin complimented Iona's work. She smirked proudly. "This level of interior magic is trivial for me." That's when Sejin had another realization. If he made this dimensional space permanent, he could summon allies freely without needing to designate them as subordinates. It was revolutionary. As laughter filled the room, Sejin noticed Baby Bear chewing on something suspicious. When asked, Baby Bear name is Quang proudly held up a piece of meat. Apparently, the lightning-struck purple locusts were delicious. Everyone else recoiled. The smell was awful at first, even making Theo grimace. But as the stench faded, something familiar emerged. It smelled like chicken. Sejin suddenly remembered an old saying from Earth. Locusts taste like chicken. Without hesitation, Sejin bowed deeply to Iona and asked if she could modify the small brazier. Outside, the environment remained toxic and hostile. Inside the dimensional space, however, a mouth-watering aroma filled the air. The brazier had been transformed into a roaster. Purple locust meat skewers rotated slowly over the flame, juices dripping as they cooked to perfection. Quang watched with sparkling eyes. A system notification appeared. Achievement unlocked. First to cook roasted purple locust in the tower. Registered under cooking level 4. Proficiency increased slightly. As the roasting continued, additional system effects activated. Stuffing purple locusts with detoxifying green onions and roasting them over indirect heat produced lean, savory meat. The toxins were neutralized, granting low-level poison resistance to anyone who ate it. Dish rating, C+. Sejin lifted a skewer and stared in disbelief at its size. He encouraged everyone to try it. Theo hesitated. It still looked unsettling. Quang didn't care. He grabbed the entire skewer, ignoring Sejin's warning about the heat, tossed it into the air to cool it down, and cracked the shell open. Inside was soft, steaming meat. One bite. His eyes lit up. The flavor melted in his mouth, and he devoured it at terrifying speed. Theo stared, horrified, and then started drooling. Soon, the others followed. Sejin handed out skewers generously, telling everyone to eat slowly and ask for more. When Sejin finally took a bite himself, bliss flooded his senses. After a year without proper food, it tasted exactly like roasted chicken from home. As the group feasted happily, unaware, the delicious aroma drifted beyond the dimensional gate. Outside, 3 strange monsters with yellow, blue, and red eyes gathered near the entrance. They believed what was happening inside was completely unforgivable. Deep inside the dimensional space, peace settled in at last. Every creature lay piled together in comfortable exhaustion, fast asleep after the feast. Quang snored softly beneath a mountain of blankets. The Rabbit Princess rested beside the Warrior Rabbit, their breathing calm and steady. Sejin slept on a hanging bed, his face relaxed, a faint smile still lingering his mouth, even drooling slightly from the lingering taste of roasted locust. Only one person was still awake. Theo. The golden cat rolled around restlessly, clutching his bloated stomach. He had eaten far too much and couldn't fall asleep no matter how hard he tried. "I need fresh air," he muttered. Quietly, he slipped out of the dimensional space. The moment Theo stepped into the swamp, a chilling presence crept closer. A shadow low to the ground, slick and frog-like, moved with terrifying silence. Before Theo could react, something yanked him backward. A rough jute sack dropped over his head. "MRRRO?" Theo screamed in panic, his voice high and shrill. The attacker dragged him through shallow water without hesitation. The creature revealed itself a stealthy frog-like monster, furious and shaking with rage. It accused Theo of being responsible for releasing the purple locusts into Navia Swamp, claiming that countless comrades had died because of him. Theo tried to protest, utterly confused, but the frog refused to listen. "This starts with you," the creature snarled. "The rest will follow." Theo sobbed loudly, begging the frog to stop. Through tears, he introduced himself dramatically as a mid-level wandering merchant, the Golden Cat Theo. The frog scoffed. A wandering merchant would never come this deep into a death zone. Before things escalated further, another frog stepped in and told the captor to check Theo's neck. When they pulled the sack slightly aside, they saw it. A silver wandering merchant badge. The frog froze. Theo collapsed onto the ground, trembling violently, his body shaking uncontrollably from fear. The three frogs, blue, light green, and dark green, exchanged uneasy glances. Why would a wandering merchant be near the swamp? One suggested the badge could be fake. Theo immediately panicked, explaining everything in a rushed blur. They had come to eliminate the purple locusts, to save the jewel frogs, to stop the massacre. Then he dropped the biggest name he could think of. He claimed he was a subordinate of the tower administrator, the Black Dragon. He demanded they release him immediately. The frogs hesitated. If the Black Dragon truly was involved, Theo nervously suggested they knock on the nearby dimensional gate. The Black Dragon was sleeping inside. Proof enough. But just imagining waking such a being terrified them even more. The frogs debated fiercely. Finally, one frog came up with an idea. They would take Theo to Lord Geron. Before Theo could ask who that was, they tied him tightly to a long bamboo pole. Two frogs lifted the pole onto their shoulders and began marching away. Theo screamed with all his might, calling out for Sejun to save him. Inside the dimensional space, Sejun scratched his ear in his sleep, mistaking the distant cries for insects. Outside, Theo kept yelling until the frogs slammed him against a rock in frustration. "Fake merchants are always loud," one muttered. After things calmed down, the green frog apologized, explaining they had lost too many comrades recently. Only then did Theo realize the horrifying truth. The ones who kidnapped him were the jewel frogs they had come to save. Furious, Theo exploded, scolding them for treating the great wandering merchant like a criminal after everything he had done. But his rant was abruptly cut off. A deep, thunderous voice echoed through the swamp. "How dare you shout so loudly?" The water churned violently. Bubbles burst from the murky depths as an enormous silhouette slowly emerged. A giant jewel frog rose from the swamp. The pressure alone made the smaller frogs collapse to their knees. "Lord Geron," they whispered in fear. The jewel frog king towered above them, his presence overwhelming. Furious, he accused Theo of harming the swamp and its people. The water surged violently, slamming Theo and knocking him unconscious. Barely awake, Theo heard the blue frog explain that the cat had been found in the most toxic area of the swamp. Lord Geron assumed Theo was responsible for the locust outbreak. Theo's body screamed in pain. Fear paralyzed him. But then, something ignited inside him. This was the old Theo. He forced himself upright, standing proudly despite trembling legs. This body belongs to the mid-level wandering merchant, the Golden Cat Theo. He accused Lord Geron of kidnapping and threatening him without proof, declaring that such disrespect would be repaid. To the king, it was laughable. Lord Geron raised his massive hand, prepared to crush the insolent cat. But the dark green jewel frog stopped him. "My lord," he said carefully, "this cat claims to serve the Black Dragon. That could be useful." Lord Geron hesitated. If that was true, this situation was dangerous. The three frogs quickly explained that Theo claimed to fight purple locusts creatures even the jewel frogs couldn't handle. Perhaps He had come to help. Theo clenched his fists in irritation. Then he acted. Reaching into his bag, he pulled out a beautifully roasted piece of purple locust meat. "If you doubt me," Theo said confidently, "eat this." Before anyone could stop him, Lord Geron's massive tongue shot forward and swallowed it whole. The subordinates panicked. Their king had eaten poisoned meat. But then, light burst from Lord Geron's body. Rainbow-colored energy enveloped him as blissful sounds escaped his throat. When the glow faded, the king looked reborn, his jewels shining brilliantly, his body lighter, his presence transformed. "That was incredible," Lord Geron said, his voice filled with delight. The moment Lord Geron recovered, the swamp itself seemed to breathe again. Energy pulsed through the Jewel Frog King's massive body as he straightened proudly, the multicolored gem atop his head glowing with renewed brilliance. Gone was the sluggish heaviness caused by poison. Now he felt lighter than ever. "What you fed me," Geron said, staring at Theo in amazement. "It erased every toxin in my body." Theo gave a sly grin. He had expected that reaction. Without hesitation, the two struck a deal. And the timing couldn't have been better. Not far away, the lizard men were fighting a losing battle. Purple locusts swarmed endlessly, their blades slicing through the air as the lizard warriors cut them down with expert swordplay. But the moment the poisonous residue touched their skin, panic spread. The toxins were overwhelming, turning every wound into a death sentence. The swarm grew denser. The leader of the guard, Tamarao, clenched his weapon tightly. Their supply of detoxifying green onions was almost gone, and despair crept into every soldier's heart. The purple swamp inched closer. Just a little more, and it would be over. Then, a massive tongue slammed down from the sky. Dozens of purple locusts vanished in an instant, swallowed whole. A thunderous burp echoed across the battlefield. "Delicious," a deep voice rumbled. The lizard men froze. Hovering above them was an enormous jewel frog, its body radiating power. It was Lord Geron. Shock rippled through the lizard ranks as they watched him devour the locusts effortlessly without suffering any poisoning at all. Then Geron unleashed his true strength. Spinning his tongue at terrifying speed, he swept through the swarm like a living storm, gulping down thousands upon thousands of locusts without pause. The lizard men stared in disbelief. Who, or what, was this monster? The jewel atop Geron's head gleamed brightly as he finally spoke. "I am Lord Geron," he declared, "King of the Jewel Frogs, Master of Navia Swamp." Standing proudly atop his head was a small golden cat. Theo raised his paw dramatically. "I'm Theo," he announced, "mid-level wandering merchant, subordinate of the Black Dragon." Only then did the truth become clear. Theo had formed a contract with the Jewel Frog King. And now, Geron was single-handedly dismantling the locust disaster. Though some jewel frogs worried about their king consuming so much poison, none dared object. Theo had saved Geron's life. The scene shifted again. Theo sat confidently atop Geron's head, issuing orders like a seasoned commander. "Eat everything," he declared. "Don't leave a single one behind." With a delighted roar, Geron leaped straight into the heart of the swarm. Back inside the dimensional space, Sejin slowly stirred awake. He stretched, blinking groggily, then frowned. "Theo?" he muttered. The golden cat was nowhere to be seen. Concern flashed across his face. Before anyone could react, a powerful tremor shook the ground outside. The dimensional gate burst open. A massive shadow leapt overhead. The swamp erupted as an enormous body crashed down, soaking everyone in muddy water. Screams filled the air. Then silence. Clinging desperately to the giant frog was a familiar figure. Theo waved smugly. "Did you miss me?" Sejin rushed forward immediately. "Are you okay?" Theo puffed out his chest. "Perfectly fine. I even recruited a new subordinate. Sejin blinked. A what? Theo gestured grandly. Lord Jaren. At that moment, the Jewel Frog King noticed the mark on Sejin's hand, the unmistakable crest of the Black Dragon. Without hesitation, Jaron and the surrounding Jewel Frogs bowed deeply. They thanked Sejin, explaining that his cooking had saved their king and given them the strength to fight back. Sejin stared, stunned. Iona stepped forward, explaining that these were Jewel Frogs, the very species they had come to protect. And the one bowing before him was their king. Theo sat proudly atop Jaron's head, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. Iona couldn't believe it. Theo had subdued a being of this caliber on his own. She stared at him with newfound respect. Theo, however, had only one concern. He tugged at Sejin's pants leg. Did I do a good job? Sejin hesitated, still processing everything, but nodded. Theo immediately brightened. Then I want treats and churros. Sejin sighed and reopened the dimensional gate, telling everyone they'd talk inside. As they turned back, Jaron hesitated, staring at the small entrance. Sejin apologized it was too narrow for such a massive body. Jaron smiled calmly. No need to worry. The jewel on his head flared with light. The glow intensified until everyone shielded their eyes. When it faded, the massive king had transformed into a tiny, round frog, smaller than even the others. Sejin gaped. You can shrink? Jaron chuckled. It's nothing special. Iona immediately rushed forward, fascinated. Back inside the dimensional space, warmth returned. Iona scolded Theo furiously, demanding to know if he understood how worried she'd been. Theo nodded innocently, wisely omitting the kidnapping part. Nearby, the upgraded fireplace crackled as a massive stew bubbled. Purple Chef's potato stew. Thin slices of purple locust meat, detoxifying green onions, and strength potatoes simmered together. Effect: +10. 5 strength for 30 minutes. Fullness for 4 hours. Low-level poison resistance. Everyone lined up eagerly. The warrior rabbit sighed in satisfaction after eating. The jewel frogs stared in awe normally. Touching locusts would melt their skin, yet now they could eat them safely. Jaron laughed happily. This is exactly what I'd expect from the Black Dragon. Strength restored, Sejin encouraged everyone to prepare for the final extermination. But the jewel frogs felt conflicted. Victory meant no more stew. Sejin smiled knowingly. There's something I haven't shown you yet. He led them to a wooden door. Inside, a massive freezer packed with frozen purple locusts. Quang sneezed violently. Iona explained she'd preserved them for research, but gave Sejin permission to cook them. The jewel frogs stared in wonder. Cold storage was a completely new concept to them. As temperatures dropped, Jaron yawned and slowly drifted into hibernation. Seeing this, Sejin smiled. A new idea had just formed. High above the chaos of the lower floors, Dragon Lady Aelin remained buried beneath towering stacks of books inside the Administrator Tower. Scrolls floated around her, pages flipping rapidly as she searched relentlessly for an answer. Her expression was tense. Until Sejin returned safely, she knew she couldn't rest. Sending him down as a mid-level manager without proper authority had nearly cost everything. She needed to fix that mistake before it happened again. Book after book passed through her hands. Then, her eyes widened. A faint blue glow shimmered across the page she'd just opened. The text itself pulsed with magic. This is it. Aelin hugged the book tightly to her chest, relief washing over her. At last, she had found the solution. Confident now, she believed Sejin would return safely and stronger than ever. Back on the 67th floor, the lizard men and wolf tribe guards finished evacuating the wounded. The air felt lighter. For the first time in days, no locust presence could be sensed nearby. Some warriors dared to hope the battle was finally over. But Tamirao raised his hand. "Not yet," he said firmly. "Theo and Lord Geron went ahead of us. If they're still fighting, we can't abandon them." The soldiers nodded in agreement. With renewed determination, they marched toward Navia Swamp. What they found left them speechless. There was no battlefield. Instead, Quang and the other monsters were calmly planting detoxifying green onions and bladed green onions across the swamp. Sejun and Theo supervised closely, offering guidance on spacing and soil placement. The lizard men stared in confusion. Iona noticed them and waved happily. They had arrived at the perfect time. Tamirao nearly dropped his weapon when he realized the head of the Wizard Association was farming. Sejun explained calmly that they were ending the locust crisis permanently. Thanks to the Black Dragon's guidance, the swamp would no longer support the locusts. As he spoke, his eyes glowed faintly, a quiet authority radiating from him. Theo, still confused, asked why they were cutting and replanting green onions everywhere. Sejun explained patiently green onions required well-drained soil. Too much moisture would ruin them. With his plantation skill now at level 5, Sejun could clearly see which areas were suitable for planting. In this moment, the skill proved more valuable than ever. Soon, even the lizard men joined in, planting alongside the jewel frogs. Sejun believed that once finished, the swamp itself would suppress future infestations. From the beginning, his goal had never been glory, only to save the jewel frogs from extinction. Suddenly, a system notification appeared. At the same time, the warrior rabbit stiffened. "They're coming," he warned. Another massive swarm of purple locusts surged toward them at terrifying speed. For a brief moment, panic flickered. Then calm returned. Sejun was here. He ordered everyone to chew detoxifying green onions and arm themselves with bladed green onions. Quang groaned in disgust. "They're still ugly." But he raised his weapon anyway. The battle began. Iona's lightning tore through the sky, turning locusts into explosive sparks. Quang smashed enemies from the air. The warrior rabbit and lizard men fought with everything they had. At the center stood Sejun, dual-wielding his weapons, carving through the swarm with relentless precision. Theo released Lord Geron. The Jewel Frog King's jewel flared brilliantly as his body expanded once more. With a hungry roar, Geron leapt forward, swinging his tongue like a storm and devouring locusts by the thousands. Even Sejun and the princess stared in disbelief. Inspired, the smaller jewel frogs joined in. The locusts were no longer poisonous. Tamirao suddenly noticed something strange. The locusts were changing color. Purple, fading back to red. Relief surged through him. A system message confirmed it. As the population decreased, the locusts were degenerating to their original form. Hope returned. Sejun shouted encouragement, and everyone attacked with renewed strength. At last, silence. Theo exhaled deeply. They had won. No one was injured. Even Lord Geron let out a satisfied burp. The jewel frogs bowed deeply, thanking Sejun for saving them. They vowed to cultivate green onions themselves and protect Navia Swamp. A system notification appeared. Mid-level manager quest complete. 3 million exp. 50,000 tower coins. Sejun stared in disbelief. Nearly a year. Finally complete. Tamirao stepped forward, confessing his role in trusting Terk the pig, who had secretly fueled the locust disaster. He offered the reward box Terk had given him. Sejun refused. "Use it to rebuild the 67th floor," he said. Moved, the warriors bowed deeply. Moments later, blue light surrounded Sejun and the others. They were returning. The 99th floor. Fresh air filled Sejun's lungs as emotion swelled in his chest. The rabbits and wolves rushed toward him, overjoyed. He knelt, greeting everyone warmly. Theo suddenly noticed something strange. Lord Geron had followed them. Meanwhile, Sijin checked on Bat-Bat, relieved to see him thriving. The fields were flourishing new crops, thriving soil. The architect rabbits beckoned him excitedly. They led him to the cave below the floor. A new staircase had been built. Candles lit the way. From now on, entry would be easy. Sijin felt deeply grateful. He noticed new purifying ants Pasaki had multiplied. Good news for the flaming tree. Then, a system message. Aylin had noticed his return. Sejin greeted her cheerfully, but she looked both relieved and irritated. She opened a glowing blue book and began channeling magic. "This is your reward," she said. Blue light enveloped Sejin. Authority granted, unbreakable body. His physical form could no longer break. Quang tested it immediately. The strike landed. Sejin didn't break. But he cried anyway. "It still hurts." Aylin smiled softly. Another quest appeared. Harvest 100,000 times. Completing it promised generous rewards reaching level 51, earning 50,000 tower coins, and boosting every tower farmer job skill by 1 level. But the sheer number alone made it obvious this challenge would be anything but easy. The story shifts, where Greed stood silently, admiring an old portrait of himself with unsettling pride. His self-absorption was interrupted when a soldier hurried in with urgent news. After receiving permission to speak, the messenger reported that the Wandering Merchant Association had officially summoned Greed. The situation had escalated quickly. Terk the overweight pig had been captured after failing to abduct the bunny princess. During questioning, Terk foolishly dropped Greed's name, instantly making him a suspect. Rage flashed in Greed's eyes as murderous intent surged within him. He couldn't believe how incompetent Terk had been. Greed had treated Terk generously. As a fellow Boar elder, he'd trusted him enough to hand over an important relic for the mission. Now, because of Terk's blunder, the very merchant association Greed secretly funded dared to investigate him. Suppressing his anger, Greed questioned the messenger about whether any solid proof existed. The reply was grim. Evidence had already been collected during a joint operation led by Iona, head of the Magic Association, alongside the Inspection Bureau under Inspector Fox. A flashback unfolds. Inspector Fox is shown arresting Terk under 8 major charges: kidnapping, illegal confinement, extortion, and more. Using a recording artifact, the authorities extracted a full confession. Terk's crimes were laid bare. He admitted to feeding the red locusts, planning to destroy the food supply so the 67th floor would inevitably fall under Lord Greed's control. Back in the present, Greed shredded the summon without hesitation. He dismissed the messenger coldly and returned to staring at his portrait, still unable to accept that the Merchant Association had forced his hand. This meant he'd have to intervene personally. From a nearby shelf, Greed removed a black book he had never once opened. It wasn't a book at all, it was a key. The bookshelf shifted aside, revealing a hidden passage. Greed descended deep underground until he reached a colossal gate marked with a golden bow emblem. Beyond it stood a white dragon statue, surrounded by towering piles of gold. The scene exposed the true depth of Greed's obsession. Suddenly, the statue spoke. Greed instantly dropped to his knees, bowing before the great white dragon speaking through it. Crimson light flared in the dragon's eyes as it stared down at him. The story jumps back to the 99th floor cave. Rabbit farmers were busy harvesting cherry tomatoes, while others alongside ants tended the flame tree and its young shoots. Baby Bear helped carry water from the nearby lake as young rabbits gazed at him with admiration. The bunny princess was showered with generosity, receiving baskets filled with freshly harvested crops from the architect rabbits. Amid the cheerful scene, Sejin could be heard quietly counting to himself. The view shifts again. Sejin, Theo, and the black rabbit were tugging at something stubbornly rooted in the soil. No matter how hard they pulled, it wouldn't budge. A thick red vine with countless leaves remained firmly anchored. Sijin quickly realized this was no ordinary plant. Even Theo, experienced as he was, had never seen a sweet potato vine of this size. Whatever lay underground had to be enormous. The moment giant sweet potato was mentioned, Baby Bear's eyes sparkled. Power surged through him as his body grew larger and larger. Gripping the vine, he pulled with everything he had. Sejin and Theo stepped back, cheering him on at the top of their lungs. With a powerful roar, Baby Bear strained until the ground finally gave way. As the massive sweet potato emerged inch by inch, Sejin and Theo exaggerated their shock and disbelief. Once it was fully freed, Baby Bear shrank back to his normal size. A system notification appeared. The crop was identified as a giant pumpkin sweet potato grown within the tower. It was delicious thanks to abundant nutrients, but those nutrients had been entirely consumed by its growth. Eating it granted no buffs, and it couldn't be replanted. It was classified as a grade C crop with a lifespan of 45 days. Everyone climbed over it in amazement. Even Sijin admitted its sheer size was unbelievable. One potato alone could feed them all. Baby Bear immediately begged to eat it on the spot. However, Sejin glanced at his mission progress. He'd only activated the harvesting skill around 3,000 times. With 100,000 required, the road ahead still felt endless. Still, seeing the joyful faces around him, Sijin smiled and announced they'd eat first. Baby Bear had earned it, and even the earlier punishment was officially revoked. Dinner was back on the table, and smiles spread everywhere. Sejin pulled out the dimensional space key and opened a gate directly into the 99th floor cave. He instructed Baby Bear to retrieve 10 purple locusts. The bear eagerly complied. The wolf chief stared in confusion, while the rabbits recoiled in disgust. Sejin quickly reassured them, explaining that appearances were deceiving. The locusts were incredibly tasty. Skepticism filled their eyes. Soon, purple locust sweet potato soup was simmering once more. Sejin tasted it repeatedly, fine-tuning the seasoning. The mother rabbit watched nervously, unsettled by its strange look. But Sejin was confident the giant sweet potato had added just the right sweetness, enriching the flavor perfectly. He handed the first bowl to the artist rabbit. No one moved. Even the mother rabbit trembled. Then, without hesitation, the chubby rabbit stepped forward, grabbed the bowl, and devoured it in seconds. His blissful expression said everything. When Sejin offered seconds, the rabbit sprinted back eagerly. Relief washed over everyone. Soon, even the mother rabbit and artist rabbit joined in, while the baby rabbits inhaled the mouth-watering aroma. The architect rabbit praised the stew endlessly as Sejin continued serving bowl after bowl. When Yona's turn came, she declined, as did the princess and the black warrior rabbit. Yona explained they had urgent matters. The trial of Greed, ruler of the 55th floor, was about to begin. Justice would finally be served. Sijin felt reassured knowing the black warrior rabbit was with them. At that moment, Lord Garen returned, calling out to Theo. He revealed he'd discovered something strange on the 99th floor. Outside, everyone stared skyward as a massive shadow loomed overhead. It wasn't a monster, it was another gigantic crop. Leaves the size of sails fanned the air. Theo immediately recognized it as a giant carrot. Even Baby Bear froze, overwhelmed. As Sejin debated how to harvest it, Theo calmly assured everyone. He instructed Jaren to transform. The Jewel Frog King grew to massive proportions and grabbed the carrot leaves, pulling with all his might. The ground shook violently, but the carrot didn't move. Before anyone could react, heavy footsteps echoed. Baby Bear's excitement exploded. The red mother bear had returned. Tension filled the air as the Frog King and Mother Bear locked eyes. Before a fight could break out, Baby Bear rushed between them, excitedly explaining the giant carrot and begging to eat it. Both creatures paused. Sejin seized the moment and proposed cooperation. Together, the strongest beings on the 99th floor might succeed where one could not. After hesitation, they agreed. They pulled with overwhelming force, triggering a massive earthquake. Slowly, impossibly, the carrot began to rise. It kept going and going until a golden carrot floated freely above the ground. A system alert appeared. Sejin had harvested the red ribbon's giant carrot altar. His job experience skyrocketed, harvesting proficiency increased, and he gained 10,000 experience points. Sejin was speechless. What exactly was a giant carrot altar? As the message finished, the father rabbit and the yellow rabbit children rushed over. Before Sejin could even ask a question, another system window appeared. It instructed him to offer 100 crops of 10 different types to the altar within 24 hours and to host the Harvest Festival of Abundance. Completing the festival would reward him with a new job skill, Crop Gigantic. Sejin could hardly believe it. A special quest tied to a floating carrot, and now he had to organize an entire festival to complete it. Nearby, the Jewel Frog King poked the carrot cautiously, still baffled by its existence. That's when the father rabbit stepped forward and explained everything. He revealed that this was the legendary golden carrot altar passed down through stories of the Red Ribbon Kingdom. According to Black Tower legends, a massive golden carrot once emerged from the ground, sparking conflict among the rabbits over ownership. During the chaos, one great rabbit called for peace and shared his food in front of the carrot. Moved by his kindness, the others followed, offering their own food as well. What began as conflict turned into celebration, a gathering that would later be known as the Harvest Festival of Abundance. Still, one question lingered in Sejin's mind. Why would a legendary carrot from the Red Ribbon Kingdom appear on the 99th floor? And in Baby Bear's mind, there was an even bigger mystery: the carrot wasn't gold at all. In the end, Sejin decided there was no point overthinking it. The system had given clear instructions. He would follow them, open the ribbon on the carrot, and host the festival. The scene shifts as Sejin carefully counts the crops he currently has: carrots, cherry tomatoes, pumpkin sweet potatoes, corn, regular potatoes, and green onions. He set aside 100 of each, wondering if that would be enough. Something felt off. He was certain they had planted more types than that. The farmer rabbit confirmed his suspicion and asked Sejin to follow him, explaining that the farm had expanded while Sejin was away. The next scene reveals rows of juicy strawberries and even chili peppers, crops they had never eaten before. Sejin was shocked. He remembered buying those seeds long ago alongside the carrots. Baby Bear started drooling instantly. He had never tasted them, but his instincts screamed that they would be delicious. Sejin finally understood how hard the father rabbit had worked while he was away on the 67th floor. Thanks to him, they now had 2 additional crops for the altar. Then the rabbit smiled and revealed there was actually one more. Sejin turned in surprise as the rabbit showed him peanuts. Sejin's excitement doubled. He couldn't believe they were already harvest ready. That's when it clicked. The mysterious stone monument. The rabbit confirmed it. The monument had dramatically accelerated crop growth. Sejin realized he needed to keep a closer eye on the farm from now on. He thanked the rabbits sincerely for their hard work. As everyone shared strawberries with Baby Bear, Sejin reviewed the list. Carrots, cherry tomatoes, pumpkin sweet potatoes, corn, potatoes, green onions, strawberries, chili peppers, peanuts. 9 types. He was still missing one. As Baby Bear stuffed strawberries into his mouth, Sejin frowned. This was a serious problem. Then Theo suddenly remembered something. He told Sejin there was one more crop. Theo reminded him of the yellow fruit they had planted after defeating the Frog Queen on the 75th floor. Baby Bear called it Pine's Horn, but Sejin corrected him: it was a pineapple. However, the problem remained. They had planted very few pineapples, and they were still young. Harvesting 100 in time seemed impossible. By the time enough pineapples matured, the other crops would rot. and with the seed shop still closed, Sejin had no easy solution. Still, he knew one thing worrying wouldn't help. So Sejin made a decision. He would harvest non-stop for now. As Theo and the others cheered him on, everyone knew an overwhelming amount of work lay ahead. The scene shifts once more to the Merchant Association, inside the Merchant Passage Central Court. An owl judge called the defendant forward. It was Greed. The judge announced that the locust disaster on the 67th floor had been intentionally orchestrated by Greed and his subordinates. He was also charged with ordering the kidnapping of Magic Association President Iona and Princess Boo Boo of the Red Ribbon Kingdom. On top of that, Greed faced accusations of treason, releasing locusts on the 55th floor passage, launching an attack against the Red Ribbon Kingdom, assassinating the king and queen, and attempting to seize the throne. After listing every charge, the owl judge slammed his hammer down, officially declaring the trial underway. Yet despite hearing his name tied to every crime, Greed merely smiled a cold, twisted grin, completely unfazed by what was about to unfold. Sejin stood quietly in the middle of a vast strawberry field, moving at an unhurried pace as he carefully picked ripe strawberries one by one. The air around him was calm, filled with the faint sweetness of the fruit and the soft rustling of leaves beneath his feet. As he worked, a translucent system window suddenly materialized before his eyes. The notification identified the strawberry in his hand as a lucky strawberry, a fruit cultivated within the tower and fully saturated with rich nutrients. Thanks to the farmer's refined skill, its flavor and overall quality had significantly improved. The description noted that consuming it would increase the eater's luck for 1 hour. It was categorized as a grade C crop and had a remaining shelf life of 90 days. Sejin glanced down at the strawberries resting in his palms and let out a faint, satisfied smile. Turning his head slightly, he noticed several small white rabbits hopping energetically around the field. They moved with surprising diligence, gathering strawberries and placing them into neat piles as if this were the most natural task in the world. Watching them work so earnestly brought another smile to Sejin's face. A short while later, he crouched down and pulled a chili pepper from the soil. Almost immediately, another system notification appeared. This one labeled the crop as a calmness chili pepper, a tower-grown plant that had also absorbed nutrients to perfection. The description explained that eating it would calm the consumer's mind for 1 hour. Like the strawberries, it was a grade C crop with a 90-day expiration period. Seeing the notification, Sejin felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. With this ingredient available, he realized he could now prepare spicy dishes as well. With renewed motivation, he moved to the opposite side of the field and continued harvesting chili peppers. Suddenly, his eyes widened. The queuing, who had been wandering nearby, was holding one of the chili peppers and lifting it toward his mouth. Sejin reacted instinctively, but it was already too late. The queuing swallowed the pepper without hesitation. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then, seconds later, the effect took hold. Flames burst from the queuing's mouth as it let out a piercing scream of pain. Sejin froze in shock at the unexpected sight, his body stiff with alarm. Quickly regaining his composure, he rushed over and reassured the panicking queuing, knowing that the effects would be temporary. Just as he said, the intense burning sensation subsided after a few seconds. The flames vanished and the queuing calmed down, left only panting and teary-eyed. Once the situation was fully under control, Sejin let out a quiet breath of relief and returned to his work. He gathered the freshly harvested strawberries and carefully placed them in a designated area, arranging them with precision. As he worked, he mentally calculated the numbers and concluded that collecting 100 of each crop type would be sufficient. The others soon joined in to help, and before long, all the harvested crops were neatly lined up in front of the towering golden carrot altar. Sejin counted them carefully and confirmed that 9 different types of crops had been prepared. At that moment, a new system notification appeared. It was a job-related quest tied to harvesting. requiring the use of the harvest skill 100,000 times. The system displayed his current progress over 11,000 uses, confirming that he had already passed the 10,000 threshold. He paused briefly, contemplating what should be done about the final remaining crop. Standing nearby, Theo casually pointed out that only pineapples had yet to be harvested. Sejin started to think for a moment. I had only planted 20 pineapple plants. Sejin and his cute friend go near the pineapple fields and see that the pineapples are still very unripe. Sejin goes forward to harvest one of the pineapples, and then one of his skills, Growth Promoter Level 1, is activated. When Sejin picks up the pineapple, it starts to glow with a golden light, and then a notification appears that says, "You have picked up a raw pineapple. Job experience has increased slightly. You have gained 30 exp." Sejin is holding the pineapple in his hand and looking at it, and it seems like he's about to harvest it very soon. Sejin absolutely hates picking unripe pineapples. It makes him feel terrible. Then Theo, watching from the side with a mischievous glint in his eyes, said lightly, "Then can't you just give us the unripe ones?" Queuing, as usual, was already chewing on something and nodded enthusiastically. Sejin slowly lifted his head. "President Theo," he said gravely. The air suddenly grew serious. He paused, then continued in a deep, resolute voice. "As a tower farmer, my self-respect will not allow me to do such a thing." Theo and Queuing froze. A moment later, both of them looked at Sejin with shining eyes, deeply impressed. Sejin rested his chin on his hands and sank into thought once more. But still, shouldn't sharp-bladed green onions and detoxifying green onions be considered completely different crops? Theo frowned. This really isn't good at all. Just then, 3 ants arrive there, whose names are Passak 1, Passak 2, and Passak 3. He calls out to them in a very cute way. Then Sejin noticed something lying around those ants, and it was none other than the seed of the purified ant. Sejin bends down, picks up one of the seeds, and shows it to one of the ants, saying, "Are you telling me to offer these on the altar? Are you helping us?" The 3 ants become very happy and start shaking their entire bodies, causing many seeds to fall from their bodies. Sejin, overjoyed, collects all the seeds in a basket and takes them to the large golden carrot, where he arranges them. Almost immediately after, the White Rabbit stepped forward and formally dedicated the harvest to the golden carrot altar, offering heartfelt sincerity and requesting a blessing of abundance. Before the White Rabbit could continue speaking, the golden carrot suddenly began to glow with an intense brilliance. A powerful light burst forth, filling the area. Another system notification appeared, announcing that 100 units each of 107 crop types had been successfully offered. The quest was officially completed, and as a reward, the Festival of Abundant Harvest was activated. Sejin watched the radiant altar with quiet satisfaction, fully aware that their plan had succeeded. The White Rabbit confirmed it with visible excitement. Soon after, another notification followed, declaring that the giant carrot altar of the Red Ribbon was granting a great blessing upon the entire surrounding area. The golden light intensified further, becoming so bright that even Eileen's crystal ball began to shine in response. Elsewhere within the tower, Aelin, who had been reading in silence, lifted her head in shock, startled by the sudden surge of power. The glow spread across multiple floors, drawing the attention of countless beings. Among those who noticed were warriors of the Minotaur tribe. They halted mid-step, staring at the radiance in disbelief. Their king gazed toward the light with narrowed eyes, wondering what kind of phenomenon could generate such overwhelming brilliance. After a brief pause, he issued an order for everyone to prepare and move toward the source, remarking that it had been a long time since their last expedition. The scene abruptly shifted to the central court of the Merchant Passage. A verdict had just been announced, and the courtroom was plunged into stunned silence. Iona was the first to react, unable to hide her disbelief. Grid had been acquitted. Standing calmly across from her, Grid slowly began to smile. At that moment, a member of the police force seated beside the chief judge stood up and declared his intention to testify. He asserted that every incident leading up to this moment had been orchestrated by Grid himself. After listening carefully, the judge responded in an even tone, stating that there was no concrete evidence to support such an accusation. Just then, the fox stepped forward and produced a ring, proclaiming it to be undeniable proof. To strengthen his claim, he played a recorded confession from Tarek. In the recording, Tarek openly admitted to his crimes and explained that the plan involved deliberately cutting off food supplies to starve entire regions. Once chaos took hold, the land would inevitably fall under Lord Grid's control. When the recording ended, all eyes turned toward Grid. Grid remained composed. He acknowledged that the ring was indeed valid evidence, but calmly clarified that it only proved Tarek's guilt, not his own. He added that he had no idea why Tarek had mentioned his name at all. The fox exploded in anger, insisting that Grid had been the one issuing the orders. The judge then turned to Tarek directly and asked whether this accusation was true. Without hesitation, Tarek confessed that he had acted alone. He claimed that the entire scheme was designed to secure his position within the Boer Elder Council, and that framing Grid was part of his strategy. Before the tension could settle, Iona slammed her hands onto the table, loudly rejecting Tarek's confession. She declared that everyone knew they had all been working together. In response, Grid calmly redirected the accusation, stating that the entire situation had actually been orchestrated by Iona herself. The courtroom erupted in shock. Iona reacted with fury, vehemently denying the claim and calling it absurd. Grid, however, remained relaxed, even amused. He remarked that if he had recorded her making such statements, she would be the one standing trial instead. The princess beside Iona observed that Grid's unnerving calmness was suspicious. Iona tried to recover her composure, explaining that she had simply not expected events to unravel so openly. The atmosphere grew heavy as the judge prepared to conclude the proceedings. The verdict was delivered with formal authority. There was no evidence that conclusively proved the charges against Grid. At the same time, there was also no evidence that fully denied his connection to Tarek. As a result, the charge of instigating the crime was dismissed due to insufficient proof. However, until suspicions surrounding attempted harm toward Iona and Princess Poopoo were completely cleared, Grid was forbidden from making contact with them. As the judgment echoed through the courtroom, Grid smiled faintly. Around him, the expressions of those present hardened, their eyes filled with anger and frustration as they stared at him in silence. As the scene shifts, we see that after the hearing was finished, Grid was walking through a dark alleyway when someone in a dark cloak met him, thanking Grid for his hard work. Grid called the cloaked figure by the name Eidos and remarked that the man was obedient, almost like a trained dog. Grid wondered aloud if Eidos was still the deputy director, since he had responded immediately the moment Grid offered him money. Hearing that, Eidos apologized. As the two spoke, the fox inspector was listening to everything from a distance, realizing that Grid was still using underhanded tactics to escape a proper hearing. We come to learn that Eidos was the deputy director of the Secret Inspection Bureau, and that Grid had paid him heavily to save himself. The fox inspector had already suspected something was wrong, so he followed Grid and confirmed that the inspection department had been bribed. Grid then explained that sparing Tarek earlier had been a smart decision. Putting him on the witness stand had worked in Grid's favor. Even Eidos was pleased by this outcome, since it had saved him as well. However, Grid now wanted Eidos to deal with Turk properly, stating that the man was useless now that the hearing was over. Grid then handed something to Eidos that shone brightly with a white aura surrounding it. It was revealed to be the Wild Dragon Seal, an artifact even Eidos had only heard rumors about. Eidos wondered how Grid had managed to obtain such a precious item outside the tower. Grid asked if Eidos' curiosity was getting the better of him as he held the seal, then warned him that if he dug too deeply, it would cost him his life. Grid's killing intent was overwhelming. Even Ito's felt fear, apologizing quickly and stepping back while clutching the seal. Grid told him this was his last chance to prove his usefulness. Suddenly, the Fox Inspector interrupted, drawing his precision gun and ordering both men not to move. Both Grid and Ito's were shocked to see him there. The inspector was finally identified as Zerath. While Ito's panicked, Grid remained calm. Zerath declared that Grid, the landowner of the 55th floor, and Ito's, the deputy director of the Secret Surveillance Bureau, were under arrest for smuggling external goods into the tower, specifically the wild dragon seal. Ito's told Zerath to stop being foolish, while Grid laughed arrogantly, mocking what such a small fox could possibly do to him. Unshaken, Zerath aimed his gun at the deputy director and expressed his disappointment that his senior had turned out to be such a coward, despite holding the title of Ito. Grid demanded that Ito's take action, complaining that the Fox Inspector was becoming a nuisance. He ordered Ito's to remove Zerath from the equation while displaying the wild dragon symbol. Though Ito's hesitated, Grid realized he could not rely on him. Without warning, Grid stabbed Ito's from behind, making him scream. The wild dragon seal fell to the ground, and Zerath watched in shock. As Ito's collapsed, Grid calmly pulled out a knife and told Zerath that the awakened position had just opened up, asking if the fox was interested in working with him. Zerath refused, aiming his gun at Grid and ordering him to drop his weapon peacefully. Grid remained unfazed, questioning whether the fox was rejecting his offer. Confident, Grid tossed the knife aside and dared Zerath to arrest him, claiming he would be released within days and face no real consequences. Zerath attempted to arrest Grid on charges of stabbing and murder, but what happened next shocked him. Grid suddenly moved and picked up the wild dragon seal. Despite repeated warnings, Grid ignored him. A crimson aura filled Grid's eyes as he openly challenged Zerath to arrest him. Zerath began to feel genuine fear as the situation spiraled out of control. Summoning his courage, Zerath fired his weapon. The bullet flew straight toward Grid's chest, yet it seemed to have no effect. Grid watched the bullet approach, and just before impact, he effortlessly dodged it. Zerath stared in disbelief. It was as though the bullet had slowed down upon reaching Grid. Grinning confidently, Grid taunted the fox to arrest him if he could, pointing the wild dragon seal forward as it erupted with blinding white light. It was a trap. Zerath was engulfed in a white sphere, racked with pain and agony as the seal activated. It was the same technique once used to trap Yona and Theo. Grid laughed maniacally as he approached the trapped fox, reminding him that the offer to work together still stood. When Zerath remained defiant, Grid decided to give him time because the offer was no joke. The scene shifts to the 99th floor, where the Rabbit Harvest Festival is in full swing. As the festival begins, waves of abundant energy flood the area. Creatures of all kinds celebrate joyfully alongside Sejun and Theo, thrilled to witness such a lively event. Even Bad Bat, the team's newest member, is left amazed. The baby bear is bursting with energy, bouncing around as if something deep within him has been awakened. Sejun receives a notification window announcing that the special quest has been completed successfully. The Harvest Festival has been held, and rewards are about to be distributed. Suddenly, a queen bee flies toward Sejun, hovering near his head. Confused, he turns around only to see the Ox King and several minotaurs charging toward his farm, their heavy footsteps causing earthquake-like tremors. Sejun freezes, staring at the massive golden carrot tied with a ribbon. The Ox King wonders aloud why a delicious-smelling golden grass is floating in the air. Sejun silently questions how someone could rule a floor without knowing what a carrot is, but forces a polite smile. Theo and a tiny frog immediately scold the Ox King for speaking so casually to the mid-level manager of the Black Tower, who also happens to be the Black Dragon himself. The Minotaurs respond proudly, stating that as rulers of the 99th floor, They have the authority to speak freely. Sejin steps in to calm everyone, encouraging a cheerful atmosphere. He explains that the harvest festival of golden carrots has finally arrived, and the entire floor is overflowing with vitality. The female ox realizes this is why she feels unusually energetic. Street vendors line the paths, celebrating enthusiastically. Sejin is surprised he doesn't recognize any of them. As they approach, cute tanuki and raccoons excitedly call out, announcing that the opportunity of a lifetime has arrived because the mass gang is present. Even Thea, the wandering golden cat merchant, is stunned. The raccoons explain that this is a long-standing festival tradition. When Thea asks about merchant registration, the raccoon admits they haven't visited the Black Tower in a long time. Sejin notices a familiar treat, a rice cake. One glance tells him it's delicious. A raccoon enthusiastically offers a deal, buy 2, get 1 free. Shockingly, Sejin refuses, only to then throw tower coins everywhere, demanding everything the raccoon has. The raccoon is left speechless. Sejin finally takes a bite of the rice cake, overwhelmed with joy. His diary later records day 267, marking the moment he tastes rice again, a moment of true heaven. Meanwhile, Theo's fortune reacts once more. Drawn to a toy stall, he slams his paw onto an item. In his hands is a key, decorated with a red ribbon and engraved with bunny ears, the same symbol as the red ribbon rabbits. The queuing happily munched on a rice cake, savoring its chewy bite as he sat among rabbits of all sizes. Every animal around him was enjoying it just as much. Even Bat tilted his head in curiosity, trying to figure out what that springy little snack was supposed to be. The farmer rabbits chewed thoughtfully, puzzled but delighted by the unfamiliar taste. The queuing excitedly told Sejin that this was the very first time he had ever eaten something like this. One of the raccoon friends chimed in too, announcing that it was both chewy and incredibly tasty. That was when Sejin reached for a jar filled with thick, golden honey. The queuing stared at him, confused, wondering what his dad was about to do. His senses suddenly kicked into overdrive, and before he realized it, he was drooling, already guessing what might come next. Sejin wore a satisfied, almost mischievous smile as he opened the honey jar. He grabbed a long rice cake stick and plunged it straight into the honey, coating it generously. When he pulled it back out, the rice cake glistened under the sunlight, glowing a warm yellow. Sejin announced that rice cakes were meant to be eaten with honey if you truly wanted to experience their full potential. The raccoons gasped in shock, amazed by the idea and wondering who could have come up with such a combination. Sejin simply shrugged and explained that on Earth, this pairing was completely normal. He took a bite and instantly felt like he had ascended to heaven. The mix of sweetness and chewiness was perfect beyond words. Overcome with joy, Sejin started dancing, waving the rice cake around as he showed it off to the queuing, the rabbits, and Bat. He urged them all to try dipping their rice cakes in honey too. One raccoon laughed and called Sejin a true customer of culture, joking that this golden seasoning must be some kind of legendary ingredient. Sejin shook the jar playfully and explained that it was called honey, a sweet liquid made by bees from flower nectar. Nearby, the mother rabbit took a careful bite, and the rest of the group watched in suspense. Sejin then passed the honey jar to the raccoons, encouraging them to try it themselves. The mother rabbit tasted it and was instantly sent into bliss. The queuing finally got his share too, happily stuffing his mouth with rice cake drenched in honey. One raccoon hesitated, nervous about this mysterious seasoning. He cautiously dabbed some honey onto his paw and licked it. The moment it touched his tongue, his world changed. His imagination exploded with visions of giant honey cubes, and he knew immediately this was the sweetest thing he had ever tasted. It felt like he'd never be able to live without honey again. He rolled around dramatically, overwhelmed by how something so natural could taste so rich, sweet, and fragrant. Sejin stood proudly, clearly enjoying the reaction. Finding honey on the 99th floor of the tower only confirmed what everyone now believed: rice cakes and honey were a match made in heaven. But there was a catch. Sejun had brought all the rice cakes himself. The raccoons nervously asked if they could at least try one rice cake dipped in honey. Sejun refused instantly, flashing a devilish grin. Their faces went pale as they realized this heavenly pairing might forever remain out of reach. Sejun raised an eyebrow, wondering if they were implying they wanted to take back the rice cakes he had rightfully brought. He added that the honey itself was extremely rare, taking hundreds of days to collect in such quantity. The queuing suddenly blurted out that their warehouse was overflowing with honey anyway. Before he could finish, Sejun calmly shoved another honey-coated rice cake into his mouth. Instantly distracted, the queuing forgot everything and returned to blissful chewing. Sejun sighed in relief and regained his composure. He told the raccoons that if they truly wanted rice cakes with honey, they'd have to trade something valuable in return. The honey jar gleamed as the raccoons exchanged worried glances, trying to decide what could possibly be worth such a delicacy. One raccoon finally stepped forward and proposed offering the pride of their merchant guild. The guild leader then revealed a container filled with a thick white liquid, definitely not what anyone was thinking. It was rice wine, a traditional drink made from fermented rice. Sejun nearly shouted in excitement, while the queuing stared in confusion, asking what rice wine even was. Sejun knew exactly how valuable it was and wondered if the raccoons were truly willing to part with it just for rice cakes and honey. He forced himself to stay calm, knowing negotiations required patience. The raccoons, however, were stunned that Sejun recognized the drink. It was made using their guild's secret recipe. Sejun smiled knowingly and explained that he was familiar with the process fermented rice brewed with yeast. The raccoons were shaken. How could a human know this? They quickly realized Sejun wasn't an ordinary trader. Still, Sejun hesitated. The honey was incredibly rare, and trading it for rice wine felt like a loss. The raccoons looked devastated, but Sejun reminded himself that business came first. After thinking it over, he decided to be generous. 1 jar of honey for 1 bottle of rice wine. The queuing couldn't understand why his dad was treating honey like something rare, especially when their warehouse was full of it. The deal was finalized with a handshake. At last, the raccoons dipped rice cakes into honey and tasted it properly. Once again, they were transported to heaven. The chewy rice, the natural sweetness, the fragrant aroma, nothing artificial, just perfection. The raccoon leader declared it the best flavor combination he had ever experienced across all the towers. Sejun casually mentioned another secret. Honey tastes even better with grilled rice cakes. The raccoon eagerly offered Sejun a cup of rice wine in return. Sejun kept his cool, though inside he couldn't remember the last time he'd had traditional wine. He accepted a taste. The queuing immediately started bouncing, begging for some too, but Sejun firmly refused, saying wine was only for adults. The queuing puffed out his cheeks in disappointment. Just as Sejun was about to drink, the sky suddenly darkened. A deep, irritated voice echoed, asking who had mentioned rice wine. Time froze as a massive stone-like figure descended. It was Kaiser, controlling the giant black dragon statue. The ground cracked upon landing. The raccoons panicked, certain they were facing their doom. Sejun felt nervous but not terrified, wondering why Kaiser had appeared at the festival. Kaiser explained that he couldn't resist after hearing talk of alcohol. When Sejun mentioned trading honey for rice wine, Kaiser immediately recognized the raccoons as merchants from the Golden Tower. The raccoons trembled and begged forgiveness, but Kaiser laughed and told them to relax. The master of the Golden Tower was an old drinking buddy of his, and their rice wine was trustworthy. Relieved, the raccoons offered Kaiser a massive pot of rice wine. Kaiser then praised Sejun, saying it had been a long time since the Black Tower had hosted a festival like this. His laughter shook the entire floor as he invited Sejun to drink together. Sejun nervously raised his cup only for Kaiser to suddenly freeze as a system notification appeared. It was his granddaughter, Eileen. She scolded him for drinking instead of completing his task. Kaiser panicked, promised to do it immediately and begged her not to block him. Sejun watched in disbelief. Before leaving, Kaiser told Sejun he was the best tower farmer and took off with tremendous force. The pressure nearly sent everyone flying. Once the dragon was gone, the raccoons finally breathed easy. They never imagined they'd meet the black dragon himself. That's when Sejun made another tempting proposal. He offered to buy everything the Raccoon Guild had in exchange for all their information about the Golden Tower. Not long after everything wrapped up, Iona, the princess, and the Black Rabbit made their way back to the 99th floor, completely unaware of the chaos waiting for them. The princess was clearly discouraged by how the trial had ended, and the Black Rabbit did his best to lift her spirits. He admitted that greed may have slipped through the cracks this time, but insisted that justice would catch up to him eventually. The princess, however, wasn't so optimistic. She understood how the system truly worked and believed greed could simply buy his way out of trouble with wealth and influence. Iona stepped in before the mood sank further, telling her not to lose hope. After this incident, greed would be monitored closely, with every move recorded. Iona confidently promised her student that next time, the outcome would be different. Even though the princess wasn't fully convinced, she still thanked both Iona and the Black Rabbit for trying to cheer her up. That's when she noticed something strange. Mana was overflowing throughout the 99th floor, and that wasn't the only surprise. Nearby, the Minotaurs had completely lost their composure after drinking rice wine. They were singing, dancing, and behaving like they'd forgotten how dignity worked, leaving the princess and the others utterly confused. Right on cue, Theo appeared to greet them. The princess immediately asked what was going on and why the entire floor felt saturated with mana. Iona followed up by questioning the Minotaurs' bizarre behavior. While the Minotaurs danced wildly in the background like drunk relatives at a wedding, Theo calmly explained that during their absence, the Harvest Festival of Abundance had begun. Naturally, none of them had any idea what that meant, so Theo led them inside to explain the details. At the same time, Sejun was chatting with the raccoons, learning more about the Golden Tower they came from. They explained that the tower was ruled by the great dragon Artemis Yule, and judging by everything they described, the place practically radiated wealth. All the items they delivered were grown by their tower farmer, Cecilia, a blonde elf. And let's be honest, Cecilia absolutely gives off mommy vibes. Sejun was genuinely surprised to learn that other towers had their own farmers. It hadn't even crossed his mind before, which, might have been a bit narrow-minded. But his real interest lay elsewhere. Rice. He asked the raccoons if Cecilia could provide rice seedlings. The raccoons blinked in confusion, adorably tilting their heads as they asked what a seedling even was. Sejun explained that seedlings were young plants that sprouted from seeds and eventually matured. He added that if transporting live seedlings wasn't possible, rice seeds alone would still work. He could grow rice either way. The raccoons agreed to speak with Cecilia about it, and Sejun nearly burst with excitement at the thought of eating his favorite crop again. However, the raccoons explained that they could only bring supplies during the next harvest festival, which immediately dampened his mood. When Sejun asked if they could come sooner, they apologized and explained that tower travel was only possible during festivals. With no idea when the next one would be held, Sejun couldn't help but feel disappointed. That's when the glow of the giant golden carrot shifted to a reddish-orange hue. Quang pointed it out to his father just as a system message appeared, instructing Sejun to head to the carrot altar for the festival's first event. The opening competition turned out to be a carrot harvesting contest, which left Sejun wondering how that even worked. He didn't have time to think before the ground began shaking violently. The Minotaurs charged past him in a stampede, driven purely by the sweet scent of carrots. The Minotaur King scooped up Iona and the Black Rabbit, while the others grabbed the princess and Theo. The smaller group could only scream internally and hope they wouldn't get accidentally crushed into smoothies. The Minotaurs moved so fast that Sejun couldn't even tell who they were holding. When Seijun asked Quang if he recognized what they were carrying, even he hadn't gotten a clear look. Eventually, Seijun reached the fields and froze. The carrot altar glowed brightly, and every crop beneath it was fully grown, even though they'd been harvested just yesterday. By any logic, this shouldn't have been possible. Father Rabbit agreed, explaining that the altar's power had transformed the entire area into a carrot-producing zone. A system message confirmed it. A 10-minute harvesting competition was underway, and whoever gathered the most carrots would receive a special reward. Everyone was already excited, but now the stakes were even higher. No one looked more prepared than the Minotaurs, who treated the contest less like a game and more like an all-out war. The raccoons turned into enthusiastic cheerleaders, waving ribbons and banging drums. Theo joined in from the sidelines, loudly encouraging everyone. Iona gave him a suspicious glance while the rabbits behind them looked utterly lost. When she asked Theo why he wasn't participating, he explained that as a wandering merchant, entering a farming competition would only cost him aura points. He tossed the question back at her, and despite their obvious gloom, Iona admitted they weren't really in the mood to celebrate. The princess confessed that greed had escaped justice once again, and they needed to come up with another plan. At that moment, a green glow washed over the 99th floor. The golden carrot shimmered with light, signaling the start of the contest. Everyone rushed forward, harvesting carrots as fast as they could. Seijun and the farmer rabbits pulled 2 carrots at a time at incredible speed, with help from the queen bee. Seijun realized he could finally complete his quest of harvesting 100,000 crops while enjoying the festival, a perfect win-win. But then came the Minotaurs. Instead of pulling carrots, they began leaping into the air and slamming the ground with brute force, launching carrots everywhere. Seijun stared in horror, convinced this had to be cheating. His face filled with panic as carrots flew like projectiles. Not to be outdone, the Quang returned to his giant form, determined not to let his father lose. He stomped the field with overwhelming force, cracking the ground and sending carrots soaring like meteors. One spinning carrot even knocked the tiny hamster flat. Theo and the princess gasped. Theo rushed over to check on her, but Yuna wiped her tears and put on a brave face, proudly declaring that she was fine after all. She was the head of the tower's wizard association. The princess burst out laughing, and the black rabbit turned toward her, relieved to finally see her smile again. The princess apologized but admitted she didn't want to be the only one feeling gloomy. Everyone else had set their worries aside to enjoy the festival, so she told them she was okay and encouraged everyone to enjoy the moment. Yuna smiled in agreement. Elsewhere on the farm, the Quang and the Ox King raced fiercely. The Ox King refused to lose, determined to protect his pride as ruler of the 99th floor. But the Quang was confident this was a team effort. Suddenly, both of them began glowing with golden psychic energy and lifted into the air. The raccoons cheered in confusion while the 2 competitors panicked, afraid they'd fall. That's when they noticed all the harvested carrots rising as well. Seijun and the others were caught in the same glowing field, stunned. The source wasn't the carrot, it was Yuna. Her staff blazed with golden light as she cast anti-gravity magic. She explained that the overwhelming mana of abundance made such a spell possible. Every carrot and everyone nearby floated effortlessly. As the carrots gathered midair, the contest ended. The system announced the results. First place went to Yuna with roughly 3,000 carrots, followed by the Quang in second and the Ox King in third. Seijun collapsed onto the ground, loudly protesting how unfair it all was. The Quang shrank back to his normal size, laughing and telling the hamster how much fun he'd had and that he wanted to do it again someday. Theo praised Yuna, clearly impressed, making her blush. As the scene faded, Seijun quietly wondered if learning magic might level the playing field next time. Nearby, the princess and the black rabbit laughed together as the golden carrot hovered, preparing for the second competition. But then everything changed. The scene shifted to a dark, foreboding location. A blue portal opened, revealing Eileen chained and restrained like living armor. Her grandfather asked if she was ready. She knew this ritual had to be done during the Harvest Festival of Abundance, when the 99th floor was overflowing with powerful energy. Kaiser announced that he would directly activate the polymorph device. As the machine powered on, energy surged violently through Eileen's body. Though Kaiser asked if she could endure it, she refused to stop. Her thoughts were fixed on Sejun and the chance to finally meet him. Slowly, her form began to change. Her silhouette stretched and reshaped, growing taller, more graceful, more refined. Bit by bit, the outline of a beautiful woman emerged as the transformation continued. Inside the headquarters of the Wandering Merchant Association, a tense meeting is underway. The head of the Secret Inspection Bureau sits across from Zerath's father, bringing news so shocking that the fox can barely accept it. Mason, the leader of the Wandering Merchant Association, starts shaking as the words sink in. His hand slips, his glass crashes to the floor, and he freezes upon hearing that the deputy director of the Secret Inspection Bureau has been killed. The director confirms the report. The man's body was discovered discarded in a trash heap deep within the slums of Passageway Village. Mason's fear spikes, but not because a corrupt official is gone. What terrifies him is the connection to his missing son. Zerath vanished shortly after the trial concluded, and now the timing feels far too convenient to ignore. Struggling to stay composed, Mason asks whether Zerath's disappearance could somehow be linked to the murder. The director admits they have no solid evidence to support that claim. Still, the reality remains, Zerath disappeared around the exact same time the deputy director was killed. No longer holding back, the chief voices his suspicions. Zerath had relentlessly pushed for a full investigation into Greed. Even during the trial, he openly opposed the verdict that allowed Greed to walk free. And the moment Greed returned to the 55th floor, Zerath vanished without a trace. The director admits that his instincts are screaming the same conclusion: both Zerath's disappearance and the murder may lead back to Greed. The realization hits Mason hard. Fear for his son mixes with burning anger at himself for ever trusting Greed. Without hesitation, he orders Director Vega to summon the leaders of the Mercenary Association and the Magic Tower. A serious conversation must happen because the tower may be under threat from within. At the same time, far above on the 99th floor, Iona approaches Sejun with the reward for winning the carrot harvesting contest. Sejun is stunned. He asks her if she's absolutely sure, pointing out that the prize must be incredibly valuable. Iona doesn't hesitate for a second. In her eyes, the reward belongs to him. Ironically enough, the grand prize of the carrot competition turns out to be another carrot. Sejun asks once more if she's serious, reminding her that she earned it. She simply tells him that he needs it more than she does. Reluctantly, Sejun accepts the carrot and thanks her. Iona bursts into laughter, fully aware that her generosity just saved her from dealing with the prize herself. When Sejun opens the item window, he learns the carrot's true identity. It's an agility carrot, infused with magical energy. After soaking in powerful mana for years, it developed unique properties. Unfortunately, it was cultivated by a painfully incompetent farmer who lacks even the most basic farming knowledge, which explains why it tastes absolutely terrible. Still, the carrot's effects are undeniable. Eating it permanently increases agility by 1 point. It was grown by Ophelia, the tower farmer of the Green Tower, and despite its awful flavor, the C++ grade carrot boasts an impressive shelf life of 100 years. The carrot looks sickly compared to Sejun's own crops, but what truly grabs his attention is Ophelia herself. If the Green Tower has a tower farmer just like the Golden Tower, then that means every tower likely has one. Meanwhile, Queuing and Father Rabbit stare at the carrot with drool dripping from their mouths. Sejun casually asks if they'd like to share it. At first, they seem more than willing. That enthusiasm disappears instantly the moment they smell it. A horrifying stench assaults their noses, and both recoil in disgust. Queuing starts gagging and desperately tries to spit out the smell, while Father Rabbit hurriedly insists that something this valuable should be eaten by Sejun alone. Sejun grows uneasy as he watches their faces twitch uncontrollably. Queuing even turns his back, hiding his expression, and tells Sejun that since he's weak, he should eat the entire carrot himself to become stronger. On the other hand, Princess is genuinely thrilled. She declares that anything rewarded at the legendary Harvest Festival of the Red Ribbon Kingdom has to be incredible. Seeing the sparkle in the princess's eyes, Sejun can't bring himself to refuse. For her sake, he decides to eat it. He shuts his eyes and takes a bite expecting something awful. What he gets is far worse. Black smoke practically pours from his mouth as the unbearable taste hits him. His instincts scream to spit it out, but Queuing quickly stops him, reminding him that he has to finish the entire carrot to gain the full stat bonus. Sejun fights the urge to curse in front of everyone, genuinely baffled by how a carrot could taste this horrifying. He briefly wonders what kind of cursed fertilizer could produce something so bitter, but in the end, he forces himself to push through. Once the last bite is swallowed, the effect activates. Sejun's agility permanently increases by 1. Unfortunately, celebration is the last thing on his mind. His mouth and stomach feel like they're being punished. He openly criticizes Ophelia, muttering that maybe farming isn't the right career for her. Queuing applauds him the same way parents praise kids for finishing their medicine, proudly telling him he did an amazing job eating something so foul. Sejun immediately reminds Queuing and Father Rabbit that they're the ones who pressured him into it. After surviving that nightmare of a meal, Sejun desperately craves something delicious. Honestly, he should probably rinse his mouth first or everything else will taste just as bad. Suddenly, the massive carrot altar begins glowing once again, bathing the area in a deep red light. The tower system announces the upcoming second event of the Harvest Festival of Abundance, revealing that it follows the same theme as the first. The next challenge is a carrot eating competition. All participants are instructed to gather at the altar. Excitement spreads instantly. When everyone arrives, they find enormous baskets filled with freshly harvested carrots. Sejun wonders just how many there are until the system informs him that exactly 5,000 carrots have been prepared, matching the number harvested earlier. That's when reality hits him. He doesn't stand a chance. This competition is stacked with absolute monsters. Turning around, Sejun sees the Minotaur King laughing confidently. This time, he's sure victory belongs to the Minotaurs. His followers roar with approval as the Minotaur King points at Iona, mocking her. He claims that she won earlier using magic tricks, but cheating won't help her now. He sneers that she's too small to even finish a single carrot. That comment instantly sets Iona off. She snaps back, yelling at him not to call her tiny, and warns him to watch his words unless he wants to end up as roasted beef. Theo jokingly asks if she has a spell that grants infinite appetite. Iona flatly tells him such magic doesn't exist. With no cheating allowed, the Minotaurs are convinced their king is unstoppable. The Minotaur King even strikes victory poses like the contest is already over. But he's forgotten something important. A ripple of shock spreads through the Minotaurs as another terrifying contender appears, Queuing's mother. The massive Mother Bear stands before the giant carrot with her usual grumpy expression. Even the Minotaur King is caught off guard. She turns toward Sejun and asks bluntly whether he's responsible for this event, mentioning that the noise from this area has been disturbing her for quite a while now. Sejun explains that he and Kwong prepared everything together as raccoons tremble before the sight of Kwong's enormous mother. Excited by her arrival, Kwong proudly boasts that the Minotaurs have no chance once she joins the match. At that moment, a radiant light appears and Garen, the king of the Jewel Frogs, reveals his gigantic true form, eager to properly challenge Mama Bear. Knowing he doesn't belong among such massive creatures, Sejun stays out of the contest, while Kwang joins the carrot-eating competition simply because he enjoys it. When the glowing carrot altar signals the start, the three giants begin devouring carrots at incredible speed. The Minotaur King grabs huge fistfuls, but his confidence fades when he sees Mama Bear dumping entire baskets into her mouth and Garen using his tongue to swallow massive amounts at once. Eating too quickly, the Minotaur King chokes and desperately calls for water, leaving the others to continue without trouble. Meanwhile, tiny baby Kwang happily munches one carrot at a time as Sejun watches proudly. After an unbelievable feast, Mama Bear wins first place with 2,100 carrots, followed closely by Garen with 1,993. The biggest surprise is third place, the mysterious cart rabbit, who somehow ate 180 carrots without anyone noticing. The Minotaur King is devastated by yet another loss, while Mama Bear receives a glowing reward from the tower. However, the revealed prize is so disgusting that she immediately throws the foul-smelling greenish-yellow ball at Sejun. He barely manages to catch it safely and can only stare in confusion, wondering what the strange object could possibly be, while Mama Bear receives a glowing reward from the tower. However, the revealed prize is so disgusting that she immediately throws the foul-smelling greenish-yellow ball at Sejun. He barely manages to catch it safely and can only stare in confusion, wondering what the strange object could possibly be. Sejun stood quietly, staring at the strange golden-yellow sticky sphere resting in his palm. As he focused on it, his status window appeared before his eyes and revealed its identity. Elixir of Agility. It was described as a mysterious potion created by compressing the essence of 10,000 carrots, a desperate attempt to strengthen the power of carrots that had failed to grow properly under the care of an incompetent farmer. The description also added one brutally honest detail. Its taste is unbelievably terrible. Effect: permanently increases agility by 1.5. Producer: Blue Tower Farmer Zelga. Expiration date: 100 years. Grade: C+. Even before tasting it, the horrific odor pouring from the elixir filled the air. Sejun and his companions instinctively stepped backward, their faces tightening in fear and disgust. Queen wrinkled his nose and complained, "I really don't want to be anywhere near that thing. The smell alone is unbearable." Still holding the sticky sphere, Sejun looked toward Mother Bear and asked in confusion, "Mom Bear, why would you give something like this to me?" Instead of answering, Mother Bear suddenly turned and began running away at full speed. Without even looking back, she shouted, I have someone I need to meet right now." In moments, she vanished completely, which only made the situation feel even more suspicious. Sejun stared at the elixir again and muttered under his breath, "Why does this feel less like a reward and more like some kind of punishment?" Far behind him, Theo sat with both hands tightly clamped over his nose. Queen also covered his mouth and nose as he slowly retreated. "Dad, it smells awful," King said. "You should just eat it quickly and make it disappear." Reluctantly, Sejun lifted the elixir toward his mouth. His face twisted in disgust. "Do I really have to eat something like this? I seriously don't want to." From behind, Theo urged him while still holding his nose. "Just swallow it fast. It's definitely good for your health." Gathering his courage, Sejun took a tiny bite. The instant the taste touched his tongue, an overwhelming foulness exploded in his mouth. He nearly vomited on the spot. Yet strangely, after the first shock passed, he realized something unexpected. Despite the terrible smell and flavor, it wasn't completely impossible to eat. It was horrible, but manageable. With determination, Sejun forced himself to finish the entire elixir. When he was done, he shook his hand proudly and declared with relief, "See, it's actually edible after all." But the next moment, dizziness swept over him. his vision filled with strange, colorful hallucinations swirling and bending unnaturally. And then everything went dark as he collapsed unconscious. After some time had passed, a desperate voice called out, "Wake up, Captain Park!" Sejin slowly opened his eyes. Standing around him were the Minotaur King, the Princess, Iona, Theo, and the Queen. The Queen leaned forward anxiously. "Dad, what happened? What was the result?" Theo quickly explained, his voice still trembling. "After you fainted, white foam started coming out of your mouth. I was really worried, and honestly, I was scared." Sejin pushed himself upright and spoke slowly. "The effect seems real. My stomach feels comfortable, and my body is filled with energy." However, as he spoke, that horrible smell poured from his mouth again. Theo instantly rushed forward and covered Sejin's mouth shut. At the same time, the final stage of the Harvest Festival began. The golden carrot at the center of the venue shone with an intense blue radiance, capturing everyone's attention. From within the glowing carrot, a rabbit angel appeared. The angel gently pulled out a musical instrument and began playing a beautiful, gentle melody that filled the entire space. Watching the scene, both the black warrior rabbit and the princess smiled warmly. The princess whispered softly, "Rabbit Angel, when I was very young, I saw you in a picture book. You look exactly the same as I remember." Bathed in blue light and music, the black rabbit felt shy as he glanced at the princess, who looked more beautiful than ever in that moment. Overwhelmed by the performance, Sejin opened his mouth to say, "Wow." But once again, the terrible odor began spreading. Theo panicked and sealed his mouth shut immediately. "Keep it closed," Theo shouted. Sejin blinked in confusion after being suddenly silenced. At that moment, a magnificent stage formed beneath the golden carrot, and excitement spread through the entire crowd. Soon after, during the Mina tour performance, someone stepped onto the stage and began dancing. The audience watched with joy, clapping along to the rhythm. Seeing this, Sejin felt a bit shy. Theo noticed his expression. Sejin turned toward Theo to say something, but Theo quickly covered his mouth again. "Why do you look jealous?" Theo said. "You didn't say anything, but I'll help you anyway." Then Theo pushed Sejin forward. "Don't worry about anyone else. Just dance, dance, dance." Sejin hesitated while being pushed toward the stage. "But I don't know how to dance. I've never danced even once in my life." The moment he opened his mouth, the awful smell spread everywhere again. Theo immediately jumped up and clung to Sejin's mouth. "Please don't open it." After calming down, Theo smiled gently. "Chairman Park, you've worked incredibly hard these past few days. Please enjoy this festival with all your heart." Hearing those sincere words, Sejin finally nodded and stepped into the crowd to dance. But the moment people saw his dancing, everyone froze in complete shock. Sejin's movements became wild, chaotic, and unbelievably strange, forming poses no one had ever imagined. Even the rabbit angel stopped playing the music. Theo approached cautiously, but Sejin suddenly grabbed him. Tears filled Theo's eyes. "Please forgive me for telling you to dance," Theo cried. "I've never seen dance moves this offbeat in my entire life. And your mouth smells unbelievably terrible." Hearing this, Sejin felt deeply shocked. Meanwhile, the black rabbit gently extended his hand toward the princess, inviting her to dance. She hesitated, sadness in her eyes. "Please forgive me. After what happened on the 55th floor, how can I truly enjoy this moment?" Holding her hand softly, the black rabbit reassured her. "Princess, don't worry anymore. We will return to the Red Ribbon Kingdom and keep searching until the kingdom is restored." His words made the princess blush shyly. Soon, the two of them began to dance together. Not wanting to be left out, Theo also extended his hand toward Iona. and they joined the celebration. Everyone danced happily together. Everyone except Sejin, who now stood quietly watching. Suddenly, a thought struck him. During the entire harvest festival, Eileen had not contacted them at all. Did something happen? The scene shifted. Eileen lay on the ground, completely exhausted, electricity coursing through his body. Kaiser shouted urgently, "Stop! You've already failed 4 times. Your dragon heart won't survive this stop now." But Eileen refused to give up. Tears streamed down his face. "Just one more time. This will be the last attempt." He closed his eyes and screamed with all his strength, "I want to meet Sejin." As the moment changed, the golden carrot continued drifting in midair while Sejin focused on slicing green onions. Theo watched closely, noticing how much their boy's knife work had improved. Seeing this filled him with quiet pride, knowing Sejin had spent so long cooking for countless creatures. Still, curiosity lingered. Whatever Sejin was making now seemed to demand extra precision. Each vegetable was cut to identical size, clearly meant to cook evenly. Behind him, the clay stove burned with a steady glow as the raccoons smiled cheerfully at the large pot. Sejin explained that with the harvest festival nearing its end, he wanted to prepare something special. Hearing that, Qing's excitement instantly bubbled over. The moment Sejin lifted the lid and caught the aroma of the curry, Qing began wiggling and dancing in delight, already convinced it would taste amazing. Sejin then looked toward the scythe rabbit and his brother, who carried a bulky sack. When the bag touched the ground, long rice cakes from the raccoon guild were revealed. The brother tossed the rice cake skyward, and the scythe rabbit sprang upward with effortless grace. With sharp, shining eyes and flawless movements, he sliced them into perfectly even pieces mid-air. Nearby, the chubby rabbit carefully gathered every piece onto 2 neat plates. Theo and Qing stared in astonishment at the impressive display. Sejin, already familiar with the scythe rabbit's skill, simply thanked the chubby rabbit for the plates and added the sliced rice cakes into the deep crimson curry. The raccoons watched in fascination, puzzled by the idea of boiling rice cakes, something they had never heard of before. Laughing confidently, Sejin told them the dish was called red rice cake soup, and it already looked delicious. Now the completed dish appeared as purple rice cake soup, boiled intensely with purple locust meat and detoxifying green onions capable of neutralizing extreme poison. These ingredients prevented spoilage, enhanced the flavor, and kept the eater full for an entire hour. The soup would remain good for 10 days. Sejin happily confirmed his calculations. Back on Earth, it was likely the Lunar New Year, a time when people traditionally ate rice cake soup. Since they had rice cakes here, celebrating together felt only natural. Turning around, he saw creatures of every size smiling warmly beneath the still floating giant carrot. For the first time, he had successfully made purple rice cake soup, and his cooking proficiency rose sharply at level 4. Soon everyone gathered as Sejin handed out bowls large and small to the Minotaur King, raccoons, and rabbits, while Qing swallowed his portion in a single frantic gulp. Mother Rabbit ate gracefully, and the baby rabbits struggled adorably with the unfamiliar food. Watching them all, Sejin felt the warmth of a true family holiday. The raccoons, meanwhile, were overwhelmed. They had never tasted anything so heavenly. With the carrot garnish even granting a slight agility boost, the soup seemed miraculous. Hearing their praise, Theo wondered just how much they loved it. Smiling, he approached and offered to sell both the soup and its ingredients so they could make it themselves. True to their merchant instincts, the raccoons immediately showed interest. When Theo asked their price, they proposed 3 tower coins per serving. He rejected it at once, scolding their poor sense of value and expressing mild disappointment. Calmly, he explained that nothing this delicious and stat-boosting could be found elsewhere. Even the raccoons knew he was right. Sejin glanced over, worried the foolish cat might strike a bad bargain. Negotiations intensified. The raccoons raised the offer to 5 coins per serving and promised to buy 100 servings. Theo smiled, nearly accepting. But Sejin suddenly stopped him. He told Theo to observe the real master of trade himself. Startled, the raccoons listened as Sejin firmly refused to sell at all. Their faces turned pale. He explained there were barely enough rice cakes for everyone present. The soup had only been shared because today was special. At best, future supplies could produce around 300 servings, making it a limited edition item. Realizing they were tasting something rare, the raccoons panicked internally. Desperate, they jumped to 15 coins per serving, hoping to secure all future batches. Even Theo was stunned by how quickly the price had soared. Sejin pretended to think, wearing a slightly mischievous look. Finally, like a generous savior, he said charging 15 felt excessive. Instead, he would sell 200 servings for 13 coins each. The raccoons wondered if he was some divine merchant of the tower. But Sejin added another condition next time. They should trade rice cakes along with payment and offer tower farmers a small discount in return. Overjoyed, the raccoons accepted and even danced together. Sejin finalized the deal and promised bonus stat-boosting crops. Theo called him incredible, a true trading genius. Sejin proudly rubbed his nose, saying it was nothing. Suddenly, a loud burp echoed. Turning around, Sejin saw queuing round as a balloon, belly floating outward. Everyone stared in shock. Theo shouted, asking how many bowls he had eaten when the soup was supposed to be limited. Sejin leaned in and quietly revealed the truth. With remaining ingredients, they could actually make 500 servings. Theo instantly understood the limited supply had been a negotiation trick. Then Sejin faced queuing with a serious expression and apologized. Confused, the little bear listened. Sejin solemnly claimed that each bowl of rice cake soup adds 1 year of age. After eating so much, queuing must have aged 100 years into a chubby grandpa. The world seemed to collapse beneath queuing. He burst into tears, crying that he didn't want to grow older than his parents. Seeing this, Sejin quickly admitted it was only a joke and comforted him. To cheer him up, he offered queuing a honey-coated rice cake, his favorite. Relieved, queuing laughed and began eating again. Then the atmosphere shifted sharply. The wolf chiefs Hegel and Elka appeared before Iona and the black rabbit. They revealed urgent news. Mr. Mason, president of the Wandering Merchant Association, had summoned all leaders. The deputy director of the Secret Inspection Bureau had been murdered. Zareth was missing. Suspicion pointed toward Greed. Theo was shocked Zareth was his friend. Princess Pyapir realized Greed could be behind terrible events across every floor. The Black Warrior Rabbit clenched his fists, determined to confront Greed if necessary. Theo insisted on joining the search. He couldn't ignore danger facing a friend. In the end, Theo, the 2 rabbits, and Iona departed for the association, leaving Sejin, queuing, the raccoons, and the Minotaur King on the 99th floor. Sejin silently prayed nothing terrible would happen. The Minotaur King then approached from behind. He explained they must return to their territory. The 99th floor waypoint had been unattended too long. And soon, the blue moon would rise. Sejin suddenly realized he had forgotten about the blue moon entirely. Before leaving, the Minotaur King warned him of strange energy in the southwestern forest. Sejin casually assumed it was only a corrupted ent. But the king interrupted. It wasn't an ent. The energy felt different. Hot. Burning with intense flames. Deep within the southern forest. A savage ant-like monster began crawling from the earth, radiating terrifying heat. In a quiet corner of the 99th floor, the Giran was curled up in his tiny, adorable form, fast asleep. Soft snores escaped him as a thin line of drool slipped from his mouth. His plump little body gently rose and fell, completely oblivious to the growing unease beyond his peaceful nap. Without warning, a massive hand descended and gave him a firm shake. The Geron jolted awake. Because of his round shape, he struggled awkwardly to roll himself over, wiggling and flailing before finally managing to flip upright. When he looked up, he found himself face to face with Sejin. In a calm voice, Sejin asked whether the Geron had been enjoying his time on the 99th floor. At once, the Geron stiffened as much as his small body allowed and respectfully addressed him as the Black Dragon. He politely asked what had happened and glanced around, noting how strangely quiet everything felt. The floor lacked its usual lively energy. He even wondered aloud where Theo had gone. Sejin explained that Theo had already departed for another floor while the Geron had been sleeping peacefully, drooling without a single concern. The Geron was stunned. He grumbled that no one had even invited him. Sejin ignored the complaint and instead stated that he had something important to ask of him. The Geron already understood he had no real choice. Theo served Sejin, and he served Theo. The chain of command was clear. After a brief silence, Sejin's expression hardened. It was time to prepare for the coming blue moon. Only then was it revealed that the harvest festival had concluded without incident. The artisan rabbits had successfully constructed an altar for the giant red ribbon carrot. The minotaurs had returned to guard the waypoint. The raccoon merchant guild had resumed operations in the Golden Tower. The festivities were over, and calm had settled across the floor. But amid all the celebrations, no one had made preparations for the blue moon, which crept closer with each passing day. In previous years, Eileen, her father Anton, and her grandfather Kaiser had stood beside Sejun, helping everyone survive the blue moon safely. Their presence alone had reassured the entire floor. Yet ever since the festival began, neither Eileen nor Kaiser's fountain statue had appeared. It was as if they had vanished completely. Their absence made everything far more uncertain. The Geron, who had limited experience with blue moons inside the tower, asked whether the event was truly so dangerous on this floor. Sejin explained carefully. Whenever the blue moon rose, corrupted monsters poured out of the western forest. They lost all reason and attacked the farm relentlessly. There was no reasoning with them, no negotiation, only battle. Even Qing's mother, the massive bear who ruled the western forest, tried to suppress them. Still, some always slipped through. On top of that, something the Minotaur King had said continued to trouble Sejin. A strange and oppressive energy had been detected in the southwestern forest, something unfamiliar, something that didn't feel like ordinary monsters. The unnatural heat and pressure left Sejin uneasy. This blue moon might not be like the others. Until now, through my tower farmer talent and the wealthy farmer's talent, Theo, Iona, Black Rabbit, and Pupiu were designated as guardians and fought together with me. But as luck would have it, these four are absent this time. The blue moon, however, would not wait. So Sejin made a decision. He would assign the final guardian position to the Geron, the strongest being currently present on the floor. The tiny Geron froze in disbelief. Strongest? Him? Yet Sejin's face showed no hint of doubt. He was serious. He intended to rely on the Geron's overwhelming power to defend the farm when the blue moon arrived. Deeply moved, the Geron began to glow with a soft green light. His small frame expanded and stretched until he stood once more in his towering, majestic form. His presence filled the area with overwhelming power, startling the Guardian Ents and even Flame. The Geron remembered how Sejin had once risked himself to protect the swamp and the gem frogs. That kindness was not something he could forget. With unwavering resolve, he vowed to repay that debt and promised to give everything he had, even if his strength seemed small compared to Sejin's. Sejin smiled, relieved to have such a powerful ally. But that relief did not last. From behind him, Flame spoke quietly, her voice heavy with concern. What were they going to do about the blue moon? At first, Sejin tried to reassure her. With the Geron and her sacred purification powers, They would manage. Flame interrupted him. For some time now, she revealed, her roots had been burning deep underground. The pain had been worsening day by day. Sejun's expression darkened instantly. Why hadn't she told him sooner? Flame admitted she hadn't wanted to worry him. But recently, she had sensed strange movements beneath the soil as though countless creatures were stirring at once. The thought chilled Sejun. Were there additional monsters lurking below, beyond the corrupted monsters? Was this blue moon becoming something far worse? Though Flame confessed she wouldn't be much help in direct combat, she still cast a protective flame upon Sejun and urged him to be cautious. As Sejun examined the protective blessing, Queuing approached and asked what the plan was. Looking at the other rabbits and bats nearby, Sejun remembered that during the blue moon, many of them would lose control and become violent. He could not allow anyone who might go berserk to remain outside. When it began, they might turn on the farm itself. With firm determination, Sejun decided to scout the western forest first. As the scene shifted, the bright sun began to dim. A dark orb slowly crossed its surface, an eclipse forming overhead. Far away, the red-ribboned princess noticed the darkening sky and immediately understood. The blue moon was near. Without the wolf chiefs, the rabbit guardians, and Iona, she worried whether the 99th floor would survive. Theo reassured her confidently. Chairman Sejun was the strongest among them. He would handle it. The black warrior rabbit agreed, telling her to focus on the crisis directly in front of them, the turmoil within the red-ribboned kingdom. Soon, a massive royal castle came into view. The group stood in silence as they gazed at it from afar. The wolf chief muttered that it had been a long time since they had seen it like this. According to Mason Zaref's father, his son was being held hostage inside that castle. Greed had demanded near total authority over the Merchant Association in exchange for Zaref's release. The threat terrified Mason. It enraged the Black Warrior Rabbit. Iona pointed out that even the Secret Inspection Bureau couldn't be trusted. That left only one option. They would have to handle this mission themselves, quietly. Theo analyzed the situation carefully. To ensure everyone's safety, they would need to defeat Greed, rescue Zaref, and free the red-ribboned kingdom from the tyrant's control. From the cliff's edge, they took one final look at the castle before preparing for battle. Meanwhile, back on the 99th floor, Sejun, Queuing, and the Geron approached the western forest. Upon reaching its edge, Queuing called out loudly for his mother. Despite his confidence, Sejun felt a flicker of nervousness. They needed to stay close to Mother Bear. She was the forest's strongest guardian. Then, a piercing scream tore through the trees. Queuing immediately recognized his mother's voice. Panic overtook him, and he bolted toward the sound. Sejun and the Geron tried to stop him, but Queuing refused to slow down. Seeing no choice, Sejun ran after him. When Sejun arrived, the sight before him left him speechless. Mother Bear was surrounded by swarms of red creatures. At first glance, they looked like locusts, but they were giant red ants, attacking her relentlessly. One of them suddenly gathered energy and spewed flames, forming a blazing fireball. Mother Bear shielded herself from fatal harm, but the swarm continued to wound her. Fire-breathing ants. Even the Geron had never encountered such monsters. Mother Bear struggled under the overwhelming assault. When she saw Queuing rushing toward her, she shouted desperately for him to stay back. It was too dangerous. But Queuing would not retreat. Determined to save his mother, he instantly grew into his enormous form. His magical strike extended in size as well. With a powerful leap, he launched himself skyward, astonishing everyone. Midair, he began spinning rapidly, building momentum with terrifying speed. Then, with a thunderous swing, he brought his strike crashing down onto one of the giant ants. The impact shook the battlefield. Dust and debris exploded outward, obscuring everything. When the dust finally settled, the ant lay split cleanly in two. Queuing landed and returned to his usual small, adorable form. Looking up at his mother with unwavering seriousness, he declared that he was strong enough to protect her now. He had truly grown powerful. Last time, we saw Quing strike a large red ant with his stick, splitting it into two. The impact echoed sharply through the air. He hit it with tremendous force, not holding back even a little. Mother Bear, Sejun, and Giran were watching everything from behind him, their eyes fixed on the battlefield. However, it didn't make much difference to the ants. They quickly prepared to attack again as if nothing had happened. After that, Sejun asked Mother Bear, "Do you know what's happening here?" His voice carried both confusion and tension. Mother Bear replied in a low, serious tone, "I don't know what's going on, but one thing is certain: they are very dangerous." More and more large red ants began to appear from every direction. Their numbers were enormous, covering the ground like a red wave. Suddenly, the ants opened their jaws and prepared to launch a fire attack from their mouths. Mother Bear, extremely angry, stepped forward without hesitation and delivered a powerful blow to the ants, killing several of them instantly. The ground shook under her strength. Seeing Mother Bear's terrifying power, Sejun was shocked, while Quing became very happy and started cheering loudly for his mother. Confident and furious, she rubbed her hands together and said proudly, "Your mother is not afraid of enemies like this." Just then, an ant tried to attack Mother Bear from behind, moving silently through the chaos, but it couldn't even touch her. Immediately, Giran reacted and punched it hard, crushing it completely. Mother Bear became slightly more cautious, realizing the ants were attacking from all sides. Giran then said firmly, "Why are you lowering your guard?" Suddenly, many ants appeared behind Sejun, as if they had been waiting for the right moment. He panicked and said, "How did they get behind us so quickly?" His grip tightened around his weapon. At that moment, they realized that all of Sejun's friends had already been knocked down by a swarm of ants, lying helpless on the ground. Giran's expression hardened. "Last time, I hid in the swamp because there was a lot of poison there. But this time, I will crush all these insects." Without wasting another second, Giran kept killing the ants one after another, his movements fast and precise. Suddenly, Sejun received a window notification in front of his eyes. "Guardian Giran has defeated a fire ant worker. You have gained 450 XP, which is 50% of the XP earned by Giran." Sejun's eyes widened in excitement. "Good job! Keep it up!" he shouted to Giran. Suddenly, an ant attacked Sejun from the side, but he blocked it with his weapon just in time. Sparks flew upon impact. Looking at the ants carefully, Sejun said, "They are much stronger than locusts." Because Sejun's power had increased greatly, he started killing the ants more easily, cutting through them with growing confidence, and happily said, "I'm not going down so easily." Then an ant launched a fierce fire attack directly at Sejun, the flames blazing toward him at high speed, and he became nervous for a moment. Seeing this, Quing and his mother also became worried, fearing the worst. A dangerous fire attack hit Sejun directly, but nothing happened to him. The flames dispersed around his body without causing any damage. He was protected. Sejun became extremely happy and said with relief, "It's because the flame apple tree gave me fire protection." Immediately, Quing rushed forward in anger and struck the ant hard with all his strength. He was extremely furious and kept hitting it repeatedly, shouting, "How dare you try to kill my dad?" His voice was filled with rage. After some time, through teamwork and relentless attacks, they managed to kill all the ants together. The battlefield finally became quiet. Later, Sejun happily thanked Mother Bear for her help, sincerely appreciating her strength and support. Then Quing grew curious and asked Sejun, "Where are all these ants coming from?" Hearing this, Sejun fell into deep thought, scanning the surroundings carefully, and said, "Where are these ants coming from? Have they built a nest nearby? We'll have to find it and destroy it." Then scene shifts. Sejun and Quing hide inside the bushes. Sejun points his finger forward and says, "Look at what's happening over there." They see two fire ants using their flame attacks to burn a corrupted monster alive. After the monster is completely burned, more ants gather around it. Seeing all this, Sejin starts thinking to himself that these ants must have eaten many corrupted monsters. That's why their population has increased so much, and by consuming those corrupted monsters, they've also grown stronger. Just then, Kyung increases his size and gets ready to kill all the fire ants, but Sejin stops him by placing a hand on his shoulder. Sejin explains to Kyung, "Wait, ants always carry their food back to their nest. If they take this monster to their nest, we'll be able to find where it is." The ants grab the monster with their mouths and begin carrying it toward their nest. After some time, Sejin and his friends manage to locate the ants' nest. All the ants are taking the monster inside. Sejin says, "Just as expected, their numbers are very high." Standing beside him, Geron says, "Even so, they are very weak. It will be easy to defeat them." Suddenly, everyone attacks the ants together. Geron and Mother Bear kill a large number of ants, crushing them with their hands because of their massive size and strength. Kyung is no less than anyone. He starts smashing ants one after another with his staff, striking their heads with tremendous force. Many ants unleash their fire attacks on Geron. He cries out in pain, "It's extremely hot, it's burning." The flames badly scorch his hand, leaving him in intense agony. Seeing this, Sejin becomes deeply alarmed and shouts, "Be careful, they're breathing fire." At that moment, Sejin uses one of his skills, Create Dark Clouds. A huge amount of dark clouds emerges from his hands and covers the entire sky in darkness. Soon, heavy rain begins pouring down. Geron opens his large mouth and starts collecting the rainwater inside it. Sejin confidently says, "With this magical power, I could even summon thunder. But for now, this rain is enough to weaken their firepower." After storing a huge amount of water in his mouth, Geron shoots it out like a powerful water blaster. The force is so strong that it wipes out many ants instantly. Sejin then receives a notification. Guardian Geron has defeated a fire ant worker. You have received 600 experience points, 50% of Guardian Geron's reward. Sejin happily says, "Nice. Leveling up seems possible." Sejin then tells Geron, "Destroy their nest." Geron replies, "Yes, sir," and once again fills his mouth with water. He forms a massive water cannon and fires it toward the nest at incredible speed, like a laser. The water cannon hits the nest directly, but nothing happens. The nest remains unharmed. At first, Sejin is excited and asks if it worked. But soon, he becomes suspicious because there is no visible damage. Then they realize what happened. 3 extremely dangerous ants are standing there, holding shields and spear-like swords in their hands. They had protected the nest from the water attack using their shields. These were not worker ants, they were soldier ants. The scene then shifts to Kaiser, who is lying on the ground, crying with joy. He says, "Finally, my granddaughter has successfully polymorphed." Then we see Eileen. Her form begins to change. She appears as a beautiful fusion of dragon and human. Her figure looks stunning. Eileen says, "Sejin, I will meet you soon." Sejin, Mother Bear, Geron, and Kyung suddenly realized they were surrounded by a group of soldier ants that had just crawled out from their underground nest. As the dangerous creatures rushed toward them, Sejin quickly shouted a warning to the others, telling them that the enemies were soldier ants. His voice was filled with urgency and worry. Suddenly, one of the ants charged straight at him. Caught completely by surprise, Sejin cried out in confusion as the attack came without any warning. Before the ant could reach him, Mother Bear reacted instantly. With tremendous strength, she struck the charging insect and sent it flying away, protecting Sejin from harm. In a firm, protective tone, she told him to stay focused and alert. Sejin looked at her with nervous eyes, realizing how close he had come to getting hurt. Not far away, Kyung was struggling with another soldier ant. The insect's strong body and raised shield were forcing him backward little by little. Just when Quing seemed about to lose his footing, Garon suddenly jumped high into the air. He slammed down directly on top of the ant attacking Quing. After knocking the insect aside, Garon looked at Quing and asked if he was okay. Quing quickly raised his thumb to show he was fine. But Garon soon noticed something strange. Looking down, he realized that the soldier ant beneath him was lifting its shield and slowly pushing upward against his leg. Surprised by the sudden resistance, Garon reacted in shock. With astonishing power, the ant pushed upward. Ants were famous for their incredible strength, and this soldier ant proved it by lifting Garon completely off the ground before throwing him far away. As he flew through the air, Garon let out a loud and panicked. Watching the scene, Sejin exclaimed in disbelief that ants were known for being able to lift objects thousands of times heavier than their own bodies. But while he was speaking, even more soldier ants began pouring out of the nest, quickly filling the battlefield with their armored forms. Meanwhile, Garon crashed down nearby. Seeing the growing swarm, Quing shouted anxiously that there were simply too many ants. Sejin, now clearly worried, asked what they should do. At that moment, Mother Bear stepped forward to confront the swarm coming out of the nest. She declared that it was time to show them who truly ruled the western forest. Her expression turned fierce and dangerous. Taking a powerful battle stance, she launched her attack. With her sharp claws, she ripped through the soldier ants one after another, overwhelming them with her strength. Sejin and Quing could only stare in shock. Sejin admitted that he was extremely grateful that someone so powerful was on their side. Quing proudly cheered for his mother, loudly declaring that she was the best. Filled with determination, Mother Bear roared that the ants should never have dared to threaten them. However, the ants quickly adjusted their tactics. They formed a tight defensive formation, raising their shields together to create a solid wall. Preparing another strike, Mother Bear angrily ordered the insects to crawl back underground where they belonged. Then she slammed her powerful paw into the shield wall. But to her surprise, the attack was blocked. Two soldier ants held their shields together and successfully stopped her blow. Seeing this unexpected strategy, Sejin gasped and realized that the ants had changed their formation and battle tactics. At that moment, Quing suddenly pointed toward something in the distance and called for his father's attention. Sejin followed his gaze and looked up. High above them in the sky was the glowing blue moon. Sejin immediately understood what it meant. The blue moon had begun. Its mysterious blue light spread across the battlefield, shining down onto the backs of the soldier ants. Under its influence, the ants began to evolve. Their bodies became more terrifying, and their movements grew even more violent. One ant let out a horrifying scream, but suddenly its head disappeared. Mother Bear had moved faster than anyone could see. Empowered by the blue moon's energy, she had evolved as well. With her razor-sharp claws, she instantly sliced off the ant's head. Sejin stared at her with shock and realization. Quing also watched his mother closely. Her appearance was changing, and the warm, cheerful feeling she usually had was gone. With worry in his voice, Quing softly called out to her. Sejin explained that Garon was watching over them and that Quing was safe because he had previously made him his subordinate. However, Sejin also understood something troubling. Without Aileen there to stabilize the situation, Quing's mother had gone berserk. Mother Bear released a deafening roar. Steam rose from her powerful body while saliva sprayed from her mouth. She faced the remaining ants with overwhelming fury. 3 ants stood nearby. The 2 behind nervously glanced at each other in fear. Even the ant standing in front looked terrified as it stared at Mother Bear. In the next moment, she charged forward with tremendous force. The impact blasted away every ant around her. All of them were defeated in a single devastating attack. Afterward, she roared triumphantly. Sejin, sweating nervously, tried to lighten the tense atmosphere. Patting Kyung on the back, he forced a cheerful tone and said that Kyung's mother had destroyed the entire nest, which was very reassuring. Kyung smiled proudly. But when Mother Bear turned around, she saw something that instantly made her furious. From her perspective, a suspicious person was touching the back of her precious son. She roared angrily at Sejin. Confused, Kyung called out to his mother. Without warning, Mother Bear attacked Sejin. Seeing the danger, Garan quickly jumped in front of him. Trying to calm her down, he nervously told her to regain control, but Mother Bear's strength was overwhelming. Just like the soldier ants earlier, she easily shoved Garan aside and sent him flying. Sejin tried to stop her. In desperation, he activated the flames of purification. Kyung screamed loudly, repeatedly calling for his mother. The purification flames surrounded Mother Bear completely. Seeing this, Sejin gasped in shock. It seemed that the flame of protection had activated on its own. Inside the blazing light, Mother Bear continued roaring. Sejin called out to her again while Kyung desperately begged his mother to stop. Then Sejin noticed something strange. The flames were not harming her at all. Thinking quickly, he remembered an important detail. The purification flames had the power to cleanse corrupted energy. In other words, they were purifying the influence of the blue moon. Slowly, Mother Bear's terrifying form began to fade. The fierce aura around her disappeared. She returned to her usual cute and sleepy self. Her body relaxed and she started to collapse. Luckily, Giran caught her just in time. He carefully carried her on his back as she drifted into sleep. Kyung looked worried and asked if his mother was just sleeping. Relieved, Sejin nodded and thankfully said that everything seemed to be all right. But their relief did not last long. From every direction, corrupted monster trees surrounded them. Kyung turned around in shock. Sejin realized the new threat and said that although they had dealt with the ants, now they had to face something even worse. Kyung trembled as he said there were far too many enemies. Giran, clearly troubled, tried to wake Mother Bear and said that this was not the time to sleep. The corrupted monster trees screeched and launched their attack. Their branches whipped through the air at terrifying speed. Sejin tried to fight back, but he was already exhausted from the earlier battle. Kyung was also drained and could only grit his teeth while continuing to struggle. Soon, several branches wrapped tightly around Garan. The crushing pressure squeezed his body and made it difficult to breathe. He groaned in pain while struggling. Sejin shouted for Garan in alarm. But suddenly another monster tree wrapped a branch around Sejin's leg. The creature lifted him high into the air before slamming him violently onto the ground. At that moment, a system window appeared. It revealed that the ability called Indestructible Body had been activated. Faint purification flames covered Sejin as he groaned in pain. Elsewhere, Kyung had also been captured. Several corrupted monster trees wrapped their branches tightly around him. Trapped and frightened, he cried out desperately for Sejin and his mother. Meanwhile, Sejin was completely restrained by the crushing branches of the corrupted monster tree. The pressure tightened painfully around him. Coughing, he muttered that it hurt terribly and struggled to breathe. In his mind, Sejin realized something grim. He had already used the flame of protection. He wondered if this was the end. Perhaps, he thought, it was already a miracle that an ordinary person like him had survived this long on the 99th floor. Somehow, along the way, he had gained people he truly wanted to protect. Nearby, Kyung was crying while calling for his parents. Sejin sadly thought that he had still fallen short. In his heart, he apologized to everyone. Tears filled his eyes as he weakly said that he had wanted to cook many more delicious meals for them. Suddenly, a mysterious voice spoke. It told him that if he wanted to cook, then he should simply do it. Confused, Sejin looked toward the direction of the voice, wondering who had spoken. High in the sky beneath the glowing blue moon, Aileen was flying toward them. A blinding flash of light suddenly burst across the battlefield. Using her powerful ability, Aileen unleashed a radiant wave that saved them all. The corrupted monsters were forced back, and the overwhelming energy gently caused everyone nearby to fall asleep. Queuing, Garon, Mather Bear, and Sejin all became calm and safe. Aileen gently caught Sejin in her arms. With a soft and apologetic voice, she said she was sorry for arriving so late. Mather Bear, Quang, and Garon are sprawled out on the ground nearby, completely drained. The fight is over, and none of them have the strength to move anymore. They're not even trying to stay alert. Each of them has slipped into a deep, heavy sleep. The kind of sleep that only comes after surviving an intense battle. After a while, Quang is the first to stir. His eyelids slowly lift as he wakes halfway from his exhaustion. Still groggy, he stares up toward the sky without moving his body. High above him, Aileen is floating in the air while holding Sejin carefully in her arms. From Quang's sleepy perspective, the sight almost feels unreal. He squints slightly, trying to focus, and for a moment he wonders if he's actually looking at an angel. That thought makes a faint smile form on his face. For some reason, just seeing her there fills him with relief, as if everything will somehow be okay now. Meanwhile, above the ground, Aileen's attention is completely fixed on Sejin. She gently reaches out and touches his face while softly calling his name. Her voice is quiet and careful, almost afraid to disturb him. Sejin's eyelids flutter open just a little. He looks disoriented, like someone slowly waking from an incredibly deep sleep. Aileen immediately apologizes for arriving late. But she also tells him that they don't have much time. As she speaks, something strange suddenly catches her attention. She looks down at her own hand and notices it beginning to change. The human form she created is starting to fall apart. Parts of it are slowly shifting back into her true dragon form. Confusion and frustration cross her face as she stares at it. She had actually planned to surprise Sejin by meeting him properly in a human form. But now that plan is falling apart. She explains that she used too much mana earlier while dealing with the ants. Because of that, the transformation spell is already fading. The moment she realizes it, tears begin to gather in her eyes. She's clearly upset that the moment she imagined didn't turn out the way she hoped. Before she can continue speaking, Sejin slowly lifts his hand. With surprising gentleness, he reaches up and wipes the tears from her face. The action completely catches Aileen off guard. She hadn't realized he was awake enough to move. Sejin looks at her quietly for a brief moment. Then, in a soft and simple voice, he tells her that she's pretty. For a second, Aileen freezes. The words take a moment to sink in. When they finally do, her face turns slightly red with embarrassment. She looks like she's about to respond. But before she can say anything, Sejin suddenly loses consciousness again. His body goes completely limp. Seeing that, Aileen begins quietly crying once more. She apologizes again. This time, she explains that the authority she granted him earlier protected his body from completely breaking apart. However, it also forced him to endure all the damage instead of collapsing right away. As she continues speaking, a gentle glow of light surrounds the two of them. Her voice becomes softer now, almost as if she's comforting him even though he can't hear her. She tells him that even though their meeting was short, she was happy to finally see him face to face. Then she promises that they'll meet again soon. After saying that, she slowly leans closer to him. It's clear she's about to kiss him. Instead, the focus shifts to the blue moon hanging in the night sky. Elsewhere, someone else is looking at that same moon. Inside a prison room, Greed sits comfortably with a glass of wine in his hand. He casually drinks while staring out the window. His expression shows mild annoyance. He remarks that the blue moon's influence is coming to an end. According to him, the Red Ribbon Kingdom hasn't been affected by the blue moon at all. That's because a powerful magical barrier surrounds the entire kingdom. Despite that protection, the labor within the kingdom continues without pause. The scene briefly shows rabbits working endlessly while boars stand nearby watching over them. Greed then shifts the topic. Earlier, he had demanded an answer from someone before the blue moon disappeared. He turns his attention to the prisoner sitting in the room. The prisoner is Jiraz, the young master of the inspection bureau. Greed speaks in a slightly mocking tone, suggesting that Jiraz's father doesn't seem particularly eager to rescue him. Jiraz, who is chained and restrained, immediately reacts. Furious, he shouts Greed's name in anger. Outside Greed's castle, two boar guards stand watch. One of them lets out a long yawn, clearly bored. He complains that the kingdom has been peaceful for years under Greed's rule. Because of that, he doesn't understand why guards are even necessary. The other boar agrees and says he'd rather be sleeping. Right at that moment, a quiet voice nearby responds. It says that wish can easily be granted. The two guards look around in confusion. Then they notice Iona standing nearby with her wand already raised. Without hesitation, she casts a spell and calmly tells them to fall asleep. A wave of magic spreads through the air. Immediately, the boars feel their energy draining away. One of them collapses instantly. The other panics and shouts, demanding to know who's there. Before he can react any further, the Elka suddenly appears behind him. He drives a powerful punch straight into the boar's stomach. The guard drops to the ground immediately. With the guards taken care of, the Elka calmly tells the others that it's safe. At that signal, 3 heads pop out from the nearby bushes. Princess, Black Warrior Rabbit, and Theo reveal themselves. They quickly regroup. Theo walks over beside Iona and praises her magic with clear admiration. Iona smiles modestly in response. Princess then explains that Jiraz is most likely being held in the castle's underground prison. The Hedgel points out that they have no idea what the security inside the castle looks like. It's probably heavily guarded. The Elka agrees and suggests they move carefully. Meanwhile, Black Warrior Rabbit quietly tells Princess that he'll protect her no matter what happens. Hearing that makes her blush slightly. The group then enters the castle. They move carefully through the hallways while observing everything around them. As Princess looks around, emotion begins to build inside her. Tears slowly form in her eyes. She realizes something. This place looks exactly like the castle she remembers from her childhood. The structure and layout are identical. But the warmth she once felt here is completely gone. Black Warrior Rabbit notices the sadness on her face and quietly watches her. Suddenly, Theo stops walking. Something about the atmosphere feels wrong. Iona signals everyone to stay quiet. The Elka comments that for a place bold enough to kidnap the son of the Wandering Merchant Association's chairman, the security seems strangely careless. Iona agrees. Knowing Greed's personality, she finds it hard to believe he would leave things so unprotected. Right then, Black Warrior Rabbit's ears twitch sharply. Without warning, a spear suddenly shoots down the corridor toward them. The Elka barely has time to react. But Black Warrior Rabbit jumps forward and blocks the attack with his hammer. Everyone immediately prepares for battle. Iona demands to know who's there. From the darkness ahead, strange figures begin stepping forward. They look like skeletal soldiers holding spears, their bodies made entirely of bones. The Elka mutters in surprise, wondering if they might be connected to a white dragon. Iona studies them carefully. Then she remembers something from an ancient document she once read. These creatures are Dragon Fang soldiers. Artificial warriors created from dragon bones. Black Warrior Rabbit immediately suggests smashing through them. The Elka prepares to fight as well. But Iona quickly stops them. She explains that Dragon Fang soldiers don't tire easily and are extremely difficult to destroy. Because their bodies are made of dragon bones, even her magic barely affects them. She's also shocked that Greed managed to collect enough dragon bones to create so many soldiers, especially since he already possesses the white dragon seal. The Elka quickly makes a decision. He tells the others to leave this area to him and continue searching for Greed. Everyone is shocked by the suggestion. Theo immediately objects, saying they should escape together. Facing those monsters alone would be impossible. But the Elka insists he'll manage somehow. Just as the soldiers rush toward him, the Hedgel suddenly leaps into the battle as well. He slashes directly at one of the bone soldiers. The Elka calmly remarks that he had a feeling the Hedgel would join in. The Hedgel grunts in response, basically admitting he couldn't just stand by and watch. Black Warrior Rabbit tries to stay and fight too. But the Hedgel shoves him away, sending him flying back toward Princess. He tells him to go instead. After all, he has someone important to protect. Iona agrees and urges everyone to find another route. The situation has clearly become more dangerous than expected. The only option now is to reach Greed as quickly as possible. They climb onto another wolf and ride deeper into the castle. As they leave, Theo shouts back, telling the 2 wolves not to get hurt. One of the wolves calls out to the chief as well, telling him to stay safe. Watching them leave, the Elka lets out a quiet laugh. He mentions how ironic the situation is. There was a time when he worked under Greed. And now he might end up dying while fighting in this place. The Hedgel immediately rejects that idea. No one decided he was dying yet. The 2 wolves then turn to face the approaching Dragon Fang soldiers. They prepare to hold the line. Meanwhile, the rest of the group finally locates Greed's room. Without hesitation, they blast the door open with a fire spell and rush inside. They call out Greed's name, ready for a fight. Inside the room, Greed is calmly sitting while looking at a painting. When he hears the door explode open, he casually says one word, knock. He slowly turns his head and remarks that it's polite to knock before entering someone's room. At that exact moment, he notices a massive fireball flying straight toward him. From the doorway, Iona calmly responds, "Was that enough talking?" Iona launched her magical firewall, and the moment she did, everyone around began to feel uneasy. Fear spread quickly like something terrifying could happen at any second. Just then, the black warrior rabbit sensed something was wrong. Suddenly, a massive axe tore through the dust, rushing straight toward Iona and the princess. Neither of them understood what was happening. At that very moment, the black rabbit leapt in front of the princess and blocked the enormous axe with his own weapon. A terrifying explosion rang out as the two weapons collided. Surprisingly, the black rabbit's weapon was made of wood, yet it still managed to stop the attack. However, Grid called his weapon back to himself, just like Thor. Catching it, he rested it on his shoulder as a terrifying blue energy began to radiate around him. The atmosphere turned heavy with killing intent. His eyes glowed red, and his entire body was covered in dragon bone armor. He spoke coldly. "That was rude, Iona." The princess trembled and said in fear, "He's wearing full dragon bone armor, and he even has soldiers with him." Iona, now serious, replied, "As expected, this won't be easy." Grid, slightly irritated, said, "Why do you think I kidnapped the son of the chairman of the Wandering Merchants Guild?" Theo stepped forward and answered, "To threaten Mason and gain more power in the tower." Behind him, Princess Pyapir reacted silently. Then the scene shifted to Grid. His red eyes gleamed as he said with certainty, "That cunning fox bastard sent Iona to finish me off. And all of you who hate me so much would come here yourselves. I already expected that." After hearing Grid's words, silence fell over the area. The black rabbit gripped his massive hammer tightly, glaring at Grid as if ready to attack at any moment. Theo and Princess Pyapia listened with anger and shock, their faces filled with hatred. At the very back stood Elka and the small Iona, completely silent, but their silence hinted at an impending explosion. Everyone watched Grid's arrogance in silence, knowing the battle was about to begin. Grid, meanwhile, was already weaving a sinister plan in his mind. He held a large, gleaming, razor-sharp axe in his hand and swung it slightly as he mocked his enemies. "Thanks to that, I can personally deal with those who have troubled me the most." In his mind, his main target was clearly Iona because she annoyed him the most. His next target is the black rabbit, and he roars with full force, "Die!" Princess Pyapia shouts in fear. "It's dangerous." She rushes forward to protect the black rabbit. But little Iona steps ahead without hesitation and raises her staff, casting a strong spell barrier to block Greed's terrifying attack. But then everyone is left stunned. Greed's weapon collides with Iona's magic staff, and Iona is shocked as her supposedly strong barrier shatters like glass. Theo can't believe his eyes and, seeing Iona in danger, screams, "Iona!" Princess Pyapia and the others tremble in fear. They are shocked at how easily Iona's barrier was broken. Elka, from the Silver Wolf tribe, panics and reveals that he recognized it correctly. The weapon in Greed's hand is an ancient and sacred relic of their tribe. This is no ordinary weapon. It's a relic-grade weapon known as the guillotine, and it is one of the top 10 weapons of the Black Tower. Theo, filled with anger and shock, asks, "Why does Greed have that?" But he quickly regains his composure and says, "Iona, that's not important right now. Our focus should be on defeating him." The scene shifts to the 99th floor. Sijin opens his eyes and feels a bit tired. Just then, Bat-Bat runs up to him, shouting happily, "Master, you're awake?" Sijin holds his head as he sits up and asks what happened. Bat-Bat explains that when the blue moon appeared, Sijin disappeared, but Quing and Garen brought him back. Sejin suddenly remembers the farm and asks if everything is okay. But Bat tells him that instead of the farm, he had gone outside the tower. Shocked, Sejun asks, "Outside?" Bat says he wanted to repay Sejun's kindness, so he brought something special from outside. Proudly, he shows an instant ramen cup and says, "I hope you like it." Seeing the ramen, Sejun is stunned. He shouts in anger and surprise, "Where did you get this?" Bat gets scared and apologizes, explaining that while flying outside, he saw other humans enjoying it, so he picked it up. But instead of getting angry, Sejun becomes overjoyed. He lifts Bat into his hands and says, "Bat, thank you so much." Now a big question arises in Sejun's mind. He asks if Bat can also take him outside the tower. Bat hesitates and says it's difficult because only he has that ability and he can only bring things he can carry. At that moment, Sejun remembers Bat's former master, Scarum, who might be a key part of this mystery. Sejun now understands how Bat's former master Scarum was able to bring things from outside the tower. He praises Bat's special ability, and Bat becomes very happy seeing his master pleased. But suddenly, a voice is heard from a far dyad before Sejun can react. A small red bear cub rushes at him and crashes into him. Sejun cries out in pain and shock. The little bear clings to Sejun while crying, saying it was very worried. Sejun's unbreakable body ability automatically activates to withstand the bear's intense grip. The bear explains that when they were surrounded by dangerous Ents, an angel suddenly appeared and saved them. Sejun vaguely recalls that he may have also seen a very beautiful angel, but he can't remember clearly. Just then, Garen arrives and is happy to see Sejun safe. Garen says he also brought something special from the fire ant nest during the blue moon. When Sejun looks, he sees shining beans in his hand. Surprised, Sejun asks, "Colorful beans?" Garen says they look tasty, so he brought them. Sejun thanks all his companions and says he's very lucky to have Bat, Garen, and the little bear. He thinks that if Eileen were here, she could explain the beans properly. Just then, a blue window pops up revealing that these are not ordinary beans, but 5-color beans. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Eileen in her dragon form. Sejun is shocked and asks, "Eileen, you're back." Eileen replies a bit sadly that yes, she has returned. Sejun tells her they were all worried and asks where she had been. But Eileen's full attention is on Sejun. She mutters that Sejun doesn't remember anything from the blue moon. A scene is shown where Eileen used her polymorph ability to transform into a beautiful girl and was very close to Sejun. It was a special moment, but Sejun has no memory of it. Suddenly, an angry blue window appears in front of Sejun saying, "I don't care." "Idiot." Confused, Sejun says, "Whoa, did I do something wrong?" He can't understand why Eileen is so upset. Meanwhile, Eileen sits on the ground angrily. She thinks about how hard she worked to use polymorph, but now she won't be able to do it again for a long time. However, Sejun comforts her, saying he's glad she is safe and that she saved them. Sejun also realizes that Eileen was the one who saved them. To cheer her up, he promises to make lots of delicious food for her. Eileen blushes upon hearing Sejun's words. But then, a new quest appears. It states that Sejun must offer the tower administrator Eileen the most delicious food infused with blue moon energy. The reward is nothing but refusal means death. Panicked, Sejun shouts, "Wait a second." Before cooking, Sejun remembers his friends. He wonders if Theo and the others are safe and sincerely hopes they've all returned safely. On the battlefield, the situation is dire. Elka lies on the ground, groaning in pain. Theo rushes to him and asks, "Elka, are you okay?" Iona and Princess Pyapia are also frightened seeing his condition. Grid steps forward with a proud smile. He says he has armor that nullifies magic and a weapon guillotine that can cut mana directly. He boasts that regardless of appearances, he is always fully prepared. Grid targets Princess Payu Payu and says he worked hard to rebuild the Red Ribbon Kingdom. With a sinister grin, he says, "Marry me, and we'll rebuild the kingdom together." But suddenly, a roaring voice interrupts, "Hey, you pig!" Grid turns around in shock. Out of the smoke, the black rabbit Black Bunny charges at him with a massive hammer. Startled, Grid shouts, "Gah!" The black rabbit roars angrily, "How dare someone like you think of marrying my princess?" Grid is confused by the overwhelming agility and strength of this opponent. Shocked, he asks, "Who are you? I've never heard of someone this strong." The black rabbit raises his hammer proudly and declares, "Who am I? I am Black Bunny. I am Princess Payu Payu's knight." In the very next moment, Black Bunny unleashes a devastating attack that lands directly on Grid. The entire room fills with light, and Grid screams in agony. Black Bunny steps forward with confidence, his presence overwhelming the battlefield. A proud grin spreads across his face as he loudly declares, "I am Princess Payu Payu's knight." His voice echoes through the surroundings, filled with unwavering determination. Without wasting another second, he swings his massive hammer with incredible force. The weapon crashes down directly onto Grid. The impact is devastating. Dust explodes into the air, and pieces of rock scatter in every direction, as if the ground itself has shattered. Grid lets out a horrifying scream. His body trembles from the sheer pain of the blow. Princess Payu Payu and the others watch in stunned silence, unable to believe the sheer power of the attack. Grid collapses onto the ground, struggling to move. Gritting his teeth, he glares at Black Bunny and growls, "Why, you bastard!" But Black Bunny shows no mercy. He immediately jumps high into the air, raising his hammer again for another crushing strike. Panic flashes across Grid's face. Wait a second," he shouts desperately. It's too late. The hammer slams down once more. Another agonizing scream echoes as the attack lands. This time, not only his body but also his pride is completely shattered. Grid groans in disbelief. My dragon bone armor." Cracks spread across his once invincible armor as it begins to break apart. At that moment, Iona calmly steps forward. Her staff glows with a soft but ominous light. Her expression is composed, yet her eyes carry a cold resolve. In a quiet but chilling tone, she says, "I've changed my mind. I was going to finish you in one blow, but now I'll make you pay for every single sin." Grid's confidence completely crumbles. Fear takes over his face as he begins to beg, "Wait, I'll give you everything, my wealth, my power, even the Red Ribbon Kingdom. Just let me go, I'll disappear forever." No one responds. Iona, Black Bunny, and the others stand firm. There is no forgiveness left for him. Iona raises her staff and casts her final spell. Grid's final scream echoes across the battlefield before everything suddenly falls silent. Dust slowly settles. In the distance, a large palace stands quietly, watching over the end of the battle. Meanwhile, a completely different scene unfolds. A wide smile appears on Sejin's face. Today, he finally gets to eat the instant ramen he has been craving for so long. As he opens the lid, a wave of hot steam rises into the air, carrying a rich and irresistible aroma. Queuing and Bat freeze for a moment, their eyes sparkling with amazement. They have never smelled anything like this before. Queuing sniffs the air repeatedly, clearly fascinated, and mutters in awe about how incredible it smells. Sejin lifts the noodles with his chopsticks. His eyes shine with excitement. He takes a big bite. And suddenly, he goes quiet. The moment the flavor spreads across his tongue, something deep inside him stirs. A wave of homesickness fills his heart. His expression softens, and before he realizes it, tears begin to stream down his face. The taste reminds him of his old world, of memories he thought he had buried. Queuing and Bat panic when they see him crying. Their innocent faces show genuine concern, as if they think something must be wrong with the food. But Sejin smiles. With his eyes closed, he continues eating, tears rolling down his cheeks. In a soft, emotional voice, he says, "It's incredibly delicious." Queuing, unable to resist anymore, eagerly reaches out to grab some. But Sejin doesn't stop. Before anyone can react, he finishes the entire cup. When he shows the empty container, Queuing freezes and then collapses dramatically onto the ground, rolling around in frustration, on the verge of tears. Sejin scratches his head awkwardly, feeling a bit guilty, but it's obvious he simply couldn't control himself. Soon after, Sejin's expression changes completely. A sharp, leader-like look appears on his face. Gently patting Bat, he announces that it's time for special training. Using a stick, he writes Hangul on the ground and carefully explains the task. Bat must go outside and bring back items that have similar writing on them. Bat's eyes light up with pride and excitement. He nods enthusiastically, ready to take on the mission. As Sejin turns around, he suddenly stops in surprise. In front of him stand Flame and the purified guardian Ents. Flame, originally a fire apple tree, now looks significantly larger and more powerful than before. Sejin's eyes widen in shock as he asks if this transformation is the effect of the blue moon. Flame smiles sweetly, clearly proud of her ability to purify others. The small guardian Ents repeat words in their childlike voices, showing their innocence and their complete freedom from corruption. Without wasting time, Sejin gets back to work. Now looking like a determined farmer, he holds the glowing 5-colored beans in his hands. With a focused expression, he decides to plant them, fully intending to take advantage of the blue moon's blessing. Meanwhile, Queuing is still sulking over the ramen incident. But the moment Sejin casually mentions sweet potatoes, everything changes. Queuing's eyes sparkle instantly. His sadness disappears as excitement takes over. He rushes forward and hugs Sejin tightly. Too tightly. Sejin screams in pain, even with his unbreakable body, showing just how strong Queuing's innocent enthusiasm really is. The story then shifts once again. The Silver Wolf tribe's chief and his companions are locked in a desperate battle. The chief looks exhausted, fear clearly visible on his face. Even after Grid's defeat, enemies continue to swarm them. Just when all hope seems lost, something spins through the air. A sharp flash cuts across the battlefield, slicing through enemies instantly. Everyone turns in shock. It's the tribe's sacred weapon, the guillotine. Hope returns immediately. The Silver Wolf grabs the massive weapon in his mouth, his fear replaced by burning determination. The guillotine proves incredibly powerful, cutting through dragon bones as if they were nothing. Even so, the chief realizes something is wrong. Despite Grid's death, the enemies are still moving. That can only mean one thing. Someone else is controlling them from behind. Back at the main battlefield, Grid lies completely defeated, his body melted and lifeless. Theo stands over him, anger still burning in his eyes, declaring that Grid got exactly what he deserved. The team celebrates their victory. They have successfully reclaimed the Red Ribbon Kingdom's landlord's land deed. Iona proudly holds it up, while Princess Payu's eyes fill with tears of relief. But their mission is not over yet. Theo demands information about Jiraz. Terrified, Grid reveals that Jiraz is locked inside the treasure vault. They quickly bind Grid with a magic artifact and rush toward the vault. At the massive door, Payu explains that it can only be opened with a white dragon seal. Everyone begins to worry, until Theo suddenly pulls out a golden key. Maybe this will work. As he inserts it and turns, the massive door slowly opens, releasing a blinding light that shocks everyone. When asked where he got the key, Theo awkwardly admits he bought it from the Raccoon Merchant Association, leaving everyone confused about how such an important item ended up there. They step inside the vault and call out, "Lord Jiraz." But suddenly, A deep, terrifying voice echoes through the darkness. "Who are you?" A chill runs down everyone's spine. From the shadows, a massive figure begins to emerge. Large horns, glowing red eyes, an overwhelming presence that fills the entire space. This is no ordinary enemy. Sejin holds a shiny blue-purple cherry tomato in his hand and examines it closely, a satisfied smile appearing on his face because the cherry tomato is of perfect quality. He softly says, nice," and looks across the entire field where crops infused with the magical energy of the blue moon have fully grown. Tiny rabbits are busily harvesting with great enthusiasm. Some are carrying wheelbarrows full of cherry tomatoes while others are happily tasting them. Just then, Queuing comes running and calls out, "Dad, look at this." He is holding a massive bundle of blue sweet potatoes, and seeing this, Sejin is astonished. He asks in surprise how Queuing managed to find only the blue sweet potatoes underground so easily. Queuing proudly explains that these blue sweet potatoes have a very unique and distinct smell. Hearing this, Sejin happily pats him, realizing that now they can easily locate crops hidden underground as well. Amid this excitement, a blue system window pops up in front of Sejin, stating that he has harvested 200 crops infused with blue moon energy and that his job exp has increased rapidly. Another window appears, informing him that his job exp is now full and that he has advanced to Tower Farmer B rank, improving his job traits. A blue light begins to emit from Sejin's body as he excitedly shouts, "Oh yeah, finally." Then another notification appears stating that his Saint of the Earth Patrick's straw hat has also reached B rank and all its restrictions have been removed. His hat starts glowing with a golden light, and one after another, messages appear stating that the limits on Blessing of the Earth level 5 and Growth Acceleration level 2 have been lifted. Finally, he receives a new skill called Farmer's Talent level 1. Sitting on the ground in amazement, Sejin says that this new skill is truly incredible, clearly very excited about this new change. Sejin carefully reads the notification window for his new skill, Farmer's Talent level 1, which states that for every 1,000 identical crops harvested, he will receive one extra crop. Seeing this, he is quite impressed and says, "Oh, that's a pretty useful skill." Suddenly, he remembers his ambitious old mission and starts thinking about how much work remains in his 100,000 harvest job quest. Immediately, a status window appears showing that 50,017 harvests are still left, meaning he has completed 49,983. 100,000 so far. Sejin becomes slightly serious and says, still halfway left, but he is not discouraged at all. Instead, full of energy, he flexes his muscles and shouts, "All right, gotta keep working hard." Queuing is surprised seeing this renewed energy and says, "Dad, you look full of energy." After this, Sejin's expression changes completely as he looks at his hand seriously. He says that this time he has realized something important: he needs to become even stronger. With firm determination, he clenches his fist and declares that he will increase his strength by eating lots of good and high-quality crops. Full of enthusiasm, he calls out to Queuing, and Queuing happily jumps and follows him as they move forward through the field, surrounded by glowing blue moon crops. The scene abruptly cut to the 55th floor of the Red Ribbon Kingdom, where the atmosphere felt dense and disturbingly unstable. Out of nowhere, a deep and ominous voice thundered through the enormous chamber, its power strong enough to make the very walls tremble. It demanded to know who had entered, its tone filled with overwhelming authority. It felt as though something ancient had just stirred from its slumber. Iona struggled to stay on her feet, her body shaking under the crushing pressure. As she scanned her surroundings in alarm, she sensed a powerful dragon-like presence and questioned why such energy was there. The air grew heavier by the second, weighing down on everyone like an invisible force. Even the battle-hardened warrior rabbit found himself unable to move freely. Still, he clenched his teeth and forced his body upright, boldly declaring himself as Black Bunny, a warrior of the rabbit tribe. In response, a cold and furious presence lashed back. The voice, dripping with arrogance, demanded to know how a mere black-furred creature dared to speak before Kellyan, the white dragon. At that moment, the pressure surged violently, as if an entire mountain had come crashing down. Reacting instantly, Iona raised her staff, desperately attempting to form a protective barrier while shouting for everyone to escape. She insisted she would hold the force back somehow. But before anyone could react, an enormous dragon claw began descending from above. Suddenly, a single command rang out, ordering everything to stop. In an instant, time itself seemed frozen. Iona's eyes widened in disbelief, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The dragon's voice returned, colder now and laced with irritation. It complained about being forced to intervene personally over something so insignificant and expressed its growing frustration with everything inside the Black Tower. A chilling presence spread throughout the chamber, seeping into every corner. Iona trembled uncontrollably, realizing that this level of magic far surpassed anything she had ever encountered. Then came a merciless command. The dragon ordered them to vanish immediately. But their bodies refused to respond. Black Bunny, on the verge of tears, cried out that he couldn't move and called desperately for the princess. Princess Payu Payu also shouted, pleading for the dragon to stop. And then something unexpected occurred. From behind Princess Payu Payu's head, a mysterious red ribbon-like energy began to emerge. The strange power expanded rapidly, completely neutralizing the dragon's breath. The dragon reacted in shock, even while possessing only a statue and unable to use its full strength. It couldn't believe that such a small being had cancelled its attack. The tension in the room reached its peak. Black Bunny called out to the princess, confused and worried. Despite her small stature compared to the overwhelming presence before her, Princess Payu Payu stepped forward. Her eyes burned with unwavering determination. With firm resolve, she declared that she would no longer be pushed around by intruders, that this land belonged to her and her people. The Red Ribbon Kingdom. A powerful surge of energy burst from her body, shaking the air violently. The red ribbon responded to her will, shooting forward and wrapping tightly around the dragon's statue, binding it in place. The white dragon recoiled in both anger and disbelief, demanding to know what this power was and how she dared to use it against him. The energy around her intensified, forming an aura that felt almost royal. Watching in awe, Iona explained that one of the Black Tower's top 10 relics, the Rabbit Royal Red Ribbon, had resonated with the landowner's deed, unlocking its true power. Black Bunny stared at the princess, overwhelmed. Iona, her voice filled with emotion, reflected on how it felt like just yesterday she had carried the princess while fleeing danger, and now she had grown into a leader worthy of ruling a kingdom. Tears of joy filled her eyes. With calm determination, Princess Payu Payu revealed the land deed, an artifact of immense importance. She declared that she would expel Kellyan, the white dragon, from the 55th floor. For the first time, the dragon's voice faltered with a hint of panic. It urged her to stop, insisting the situation made no sense. But it was too late. The dragon was forcibly driven out, vanishing from the chamber. As the battle came to an end, the princess's strength gave out, and she began to fall. Black Bunny runs forward at full speed and shouts emotionally, "Princess!" He hugs her tightly, and their expressions clearly show a deep sense of relief, as if a huge burden has finally been lifted. Princess Payu Payu smiles warmly from behind her glasses and gently tells him that everything is fine now and all the hardships are over. Her face reflects a happiness that shows they have finally reached their destination after such a terrifying battle. On the other side, Theo and little Iona stand at a distance, watching this emotional reunion carefully, their expressions filled with pride and happiness for their friends. But the story shifts back to the field on the 99th floor, where the sky is clear and blue. Suddenly, the massive dragon Kaiser roars angrily, "Hey, Park Sejun! His voice tears through the sky as he complains that Sejin doesn't even remember how much effort he made to help him meet Aileen. Kaiser grumbles about how ungrateful Sejin is for not even letting him drink mac jelly. Sejin stands fearlessly in front of him and says seriously, "Kaiser Nim, I regret that I don't remember meeting Aileen, but the moment you meet me, you ask for macchioli. That macchioli is my property." His face turns firm as he explains that he has always treated Kaiser like family and let him drink freely, but Kaiser shouldn't take advantage of that kindness. And right now, I'm harvesting crops to help Aileen recover, and you're interfering. Even as a farmer, Sejin shows he has the courage to stand up to a giant dragon. Seeing Sejin's strict attitude, Kaiser immediately calms down and awkwardly scratches his head, saying, "Sorry," Sejin continues seriously, saying he will give him macchioli, but Kaiser must understand his situation too. Kaiser nods innocently and says, "Understood." Watching this, the tiny rabbits in the field are completely shocked. They whisper among themselves in amazement at how Sejin managed to control such a terrifying black dragon so easily. Their faces show deep respect and admiration for him. Kaiser then decides to give Sejin something as an apology. He stretches out his massive claw, confusing Sejin, who wonders what he's doing. Kaiser takes out a glowing purple stone and says, "Park Sejin, accept this as compensation." He explains that it is the Great Black Dragon's scale, which will be very useful to Sejin in the future. Sejin takes the shining scale in his hand, examines it carefully, and thanks Kaiser. Kaiser feels satisfied now that the macchioli deal is settled. But suddenly, the atmosphere changes. The carrot altar in the field begins to glow with a bright golden light. Sejin's eyes widen in shock as he says, "What? The carrot altar is glowing?" Even the small rabbit behind him looks equally stunned. A powerful golden beam shoots up from the carrot altar into the sky, like a magical pillar of light. In the next moment, the white dragon Kellyan Marmev, who was inside the vault, becomes furious because the rabbits have forcefully summoned her using the altar. She roars angrily, questioning how they dared to do such a thing. Sejin and the tiny rabbits tremble as they witness this terrifying scene. Sejin shouts in shock, "That is." Kaiser, already present there, becomes enraged upon seeing her and yells, "You, don't tell me. Whitey Kellyan." Kellyan glares back just as fiercely and shouts, "Blackie Kaiser, you damn nemesis." Their long-standing rivalry becomes instantly clear. Without wasting a second, both gigantic dragons charge at each other. Their clash creates a massive explosion, sending red and blue energy across the sky. The battle is so intense that dust rises everywhere and the ground begins to shake. Watching all this, poor Sejin grabs his head in despair and screams, my field," as the farm he worked so hard to build is being destroyed in the middle of the dragons' battle. A fierce battle has broken out in the sky between Kaiser and Kellyan, where both gigantic dragons are attacking each other in anger. Kaiser roars, asking where Kellyan is trying to intrude, to which Kellyan insults him by calling him a prick. Poor Sejin falls to the ground, and the little rabbits shout, "Sejin, I think you need to dodge." Amid dust and explosions, Kellyan yells at Kaiser that because of him, he hasn't been able to eat meat for a long time, but Kaiser fires back, asking why he stole the snacks he had saved for his 40,000th birthday. Kellyan's anger increases further because Kaiser had broken his teeth without thinking. The energy of both dragons collides, and the sky fills with red and blue light. Sejin risks his life and tries to come between them, shouting, "Everyone, please calm down." But when the dragons don't stop, Sejin stands on a large rock covered with strange markings. His face now shows intense anger and frustration. He tells Kaiser that he is acting so childishly that he is disappointed in him. Both Kaiser and Kellyan freeze when they notice the rock. Kaiser asks in shock if it is the Creator's sacred monument. Kellyan becomes furious that an ordinary human dares to step on something so sacred. Sejin replies that it was the only place left to escape their terrifying aura. He threatens them that if they don't want to be banished from the 99th floor, they should stop immediately. Banished? Hearing this, Kellyan becomes even angrier. His eyes glow red as he arrogantly shouts how a mere black-haired boy could dare threaten him. He screams, "Die," and releases a terrifying energy beam. Kaiser tries to stop him, but the beam heads straight towards Sejun's field. With wide eyes, full of sorrow and anger, Sejun shouts, "My field," because all his hard work is about to turn to ashes. Kellyan arrogantly declares that he will completely destroy this black tower, leaving even Kaiser stunned. Sejun is now completely calm, but there is a dangerous glint in his eyes as he says, "Prepare for banishment." A blue magic circle suddenly glows beneath the white dragon Kellyan's feet, and he screams in shock, asking what this is. Sejun's anger is now clearly visible as he yells at both Kaiser and Kellyan, asking how they dared destroy the field that he and his companions nurtured with such effort. He immediately calls Eileen. Blue system windows pop up, stating that a dragonkin soul has illegally entered the Black Tower. The analysis result reveals that it is 30% of the soul of Kellyan, the administrator of the White Tower. Seeing this, Eileen says "hem" in surprise and realizes that this is a statue containing a part of Grandpa Kellyan's soul. She knows that if Kellyan is banished in this state, that part of his soul will be erased forever. The administrator mark on Sejun's hand begins to glow, and a screen appears. "Do you want to banish Kellyan? Yes or no?" Kellyan becomes frightened and asks in shock if Sejun is an interim administrator. He yells at Kaiser, asking how he could give such a great responsibility to such a weak human. Kaiser, amused, says how strange it is that Kellyan is about to lose 30% of his soul to a weak human. Kaiser excitedly tells Sejun to immediately kick this guy Kellyan out. But Sejun calmly asks Kellyan what he wants to do now. He says he can banish his soul immediately but will give him a chance. If Kellyan promises not to harm him and his companions and provides compensation, he will stop. Kellyan angrily agrees, saying, "Ugh, fine," and calls Sejun a bastard. Sejun immediately corrects him, saying, "I'm not a bastard. I'm Park Sejun, interim administrator of the Black Tower." A paper contract is signed between them, and Sejun says, "Contract complete." Kaiser, slightly annoyed, taunts Kellyan by calling him Whitey, but Sejun silences him to avoid further trouble. With a tired smile, he says that although part of the field has been destroyed, everyone is safe, and that is what matters most. He comforts his little rabbits and says they will all have breakfast together, and then resume working on the field. Finally, showing great generosity, Sejun turns to both Kaiser and Kellyan and says, "You two should also come with us." The two massive dragons look at each other and at Sejun in disbelief, as if they can't believe a human is inviting them to breakfast. A fire burns in Sejun's field, and above it, a large pot of purple sweet potato soup is boiling. The system window confirms the soup is ready, and Sejun's cooking proficiency has slightly increased. Without fear, Sejun fills a bowl and offers it to the gigantic white dragon Kellyan, saying, "Here, taste this." Kaiser is also present and asks Sejun for roasted sweet potatoes, but when Sejun says he only made soup, Kaiser becomes furious. He shouts that Sejun should always have roasted potatoes ready because it's his favorite. Calmly, Sejun reminds him that if he wanted plenty of blue moon crops, he shouldn't have destroyed the field. Kaiser immediately calms down and apologizes in embarrassment, knowing he lost a rare opportunity. The atmosphere in Sejun's field is somewhat calm, where the little rabbits are happily drinking their soup, and among them stands the statue of the white dragon Kellyan, who looks slightly troubled and sweaty. Kellyan is holding a small bowl filled with purple soup and, in great confusion, asks himself, "Is this really that good?" As soon as he tries to taste the soup, a miracle suddenly happens. The soup teleports directly to the real Kellyan, who is sitting somewhere in the sky amidst a galaxy in his true humanoid form. This true form of Kellyan is quite majestic, with long white hair, a long beard. Looking closely at the hot soup, he hums and says, "Let's see then." As soon as the real Kellyan takes a spoonful of the soup into his mouth, His eyes widen in shock and a red glow begins to shine in them. He starts gulping down the soup without stopping, and an indescribable frustration appears on his face. In a low voice, he mutters, "How frustrating." Kellyan now bursts out in full anger and jealousy, shouting, "How frustrating," because he cannot accept that the chef of the Black Tower can make such incredibly delicious food that remains so fresh and tasty. Kellyan loses all patience and lunges toward Sejin with full intensity. Shouting, he asks, "Park Sejin, do you have any more of that?" Sejin, who is calmly standing in the field wearing his hat, reminds him of his earlier rude behavior. Sejin says how dare Kellyan so casually ask for soup when just moments ago he was trying to kill him, but then says that according to the contract, he will receive compensation anyway, so he can drink as much soup as he wants. However, when Kellyan approaches the pot, he finds it completely empty. Queuing is lying on the ground with a full belly, looking completely satisfied after finishing all the soup. Sejin is surprised because the scene feels familiar. Kellyan lets out a sorrowful, angry sound because nothing is left for him. Sejin becomes frustrated with Kaiser and Kellyan's childish behavior and extends his hand, activating blue administrator energy. He warns Kellyan that if outsiders hear them, they will think he is his subordinate. Frightened, Kellyan immediately starts apologizing. Sejin keeps his hand in the same position, and there is a proud glint in his eyes. He clearly tells Kellyan that he is not just some ordinary chef of this tower. The very next moment, a gentle smile appears on Sejin's face, and with full enthusiasm and pride, he gives his true introduction. He says that he is a tower farmer of the Black Tower. Jiras, who had been imprisoned, thanks Theo and explains that the scoundrel Greed had tricked and locked him up. Jiras is shocked at how Theo dealt with the Dragon Fang soldiers outside, to which Theo proudly says they not only defeated Greed, but also banished the giant white dragon behind him. Jiras cannot believe that an ordinary merchant defeated a dragon, but Theo explains that the princess used the power of the red ribbon artifact to drive the dragon away. Princess Payu Payu still looks a bit shaken because she herself doesn't fully understand how such a miracle happened, but she feels relieved that her kingdom is now safe. Jiras feels ashamed for causing trouble, but Theo reassures him that his honest heart is stronger than any dragon's power. Jiras promises that when Theo returns to the Raccoon Merchant Association, his father will give him a great reward. However, Theo, now acting as a responsible merchant, says rewards can wait. First, he must fulfill his contract with Park Sejin. He has a lot of goods for humans to deliver to the lower floors, so he wishes everyone good luck and rides off toward the 38th floor on a silver wolf. Watching him leave, Princess Payu Payu and the little Iona standing beside her both have only one thought in their minds, that Theo has truly proven himself as a capable wandering merchant. Black Bunny and everyone else are also watching him leave with pride, remembering the time when they first saw Theo. They are completely certain that Theo has not only been the best merchant for them, but for the entire tower. The story returns to the 99th floor, where Sejin has planted 5 color bean seeds in the field. System windows flash, showing his job experience and sowing proficiency increasing. Full of energy, Sejin says, "All right," and starts restoring the field together with his rabbits and queuing. Everyone is happy and busy farming when suddenly Sejin notices a poison honeybee that seems very distressed. He asks what happened, but as he looks closely at the bee, his face turns pale. He has never seen a honeybee like this before. The bee flies in the sky making a strange bzz sound, and its expressions are very mysterious, making Sejin feel that either a new trouble or a new miracle is about to occur in the field. Sejin stands in his field, looking ahead in astonishment where a strange bee is floating in the air. Along with him, Queuing and a small white rabbit look just as surprised as Sejin. Sejin slowly asks, "Who are you?" Then his eyes fall on 2 more bees standing behind, and he recognizes them. These are the poison bees from the East Forest that are often seen around Sejin's farm. But the situation heats up when an angry poison bee steps forward and shouts at the strange bee. "This is our territory. Go back." It says that the East Forest bees always trouble them. Hearing this, the strange bee, who is actually their queen, becomes very sad. Tears fill her eyes and she starts crying. Poor Sejin gets nervous and tries to calm her. "It's okay, don't cry." But the angry poison bee doesn't stop and yells, "Get out of here." Sejin tries to calm her too, but then something happens that shocks everyone. Suddenly, a terrifying bzzz sound echoes in the sky. When Sejin looks up, he sees an entire army of bees descending from the sky. They roar angrily, "Who dared to trouble our queen?" "I'll risk my life to sting you," Sejin screams in fear. "Ag, this is really bad." The entire sky is filled with bees, and Sejin, holding his hat, wonders what is happening. Just then, the old queen bee also approaches Sujin and asks, "What is going on?" Then Sejin explains that the East Forest poison bees suddenly attacked them, and now a great war is about to break out in the field. The situation has now become very intense as the old queen bee calls her fellow bees to battle. Everyone, prepare for war. Seeing this, the small rabbit and Queuing are stunned. The rabbit has even picked up a shovel out of fear, and Queuing asks in shock, "Are we really going to fight?" In the next moment, an entire army of poison bees attacks the enemies in the sky. Poor Sejin nervously grabs his hat, thinking that at this rate, his entire field will be destroyed. But suddenly, a terrifying and angry voice echoes from the sky. This buzzing is too loud. There is a sudden explosion, and dust rises everywhere. All the bees freeze in fear. As the dust clears, the gigantic white dragon Kellyan appears and roars angrily. "What are these noisy creatures?" Sejin, shocked, says, "Sir Kellyan?" Queuing speaks from behind. "Why is this mister still here?" Kellyan is so angry that he prepares to release a terrifying energy beam from his mouth and says, "I'll wipe out all you pests right now." The poor queen bees and her companions tremble in fear. Sejin immediately jumps between them, spreading his arms and shouting, "Stop! Wasn't the field enough that now you'll harm my poison bees too?" Kellyan doesn't care and says the noise is hurting his ears. Sejin now shows his authority as a middle manager and seriously tells Kellyan to calm down. Kellyan cools down a bit but is still irritated. The East Forest queen bee and the other bees watch in shock at how Sejin managed to stop such a huge dragon. Sejin stands firmly between everyone and declares, "As the middle manager of the Black Tower, I order you, get along with each other." Kellyan, the queen bee, and Queuing all stare at him as Sejin turns a war into friendship in a single moment. After the threat of war, the atmosphere in the field becomes calmer. The East Forest queen bee happily drinks honey from a large glass, smiling widely. She proudly says "bzz" as if she really likes the taste. Sejin watches from afar and thinks that although they seemed like enemies before, if these poison bees join his side, he could get even more honey in the future. Queuing also looks very happy hearing "even more honey." Sejin curiously asks how they came all the way here from the East Forest. The queen bee's expression suddenly turns serious. She explains that they were attacked by some red creatures that breathe fire. Another bee says their shells are so strong that even bee stingers cannot pierce them. Sejin is startled and immediately remembers something. He quickly goes near his warehouse door and says, "Wait just a minute." Sejin brings out a giant red insect and asks, "Are you talking about these?" Seeing this, the queen bee and the other bees jump back in fear. They start shouting, "Everyone, prepare for battle." Sejin quickly stops them and yells, "No, calm down." He explains that it's just the carcass of a fire ant worker. Sejin says he thought it might taste like a locust, but its shell is extremely hard. Worry appears on Sejin's face. He thinks that these fire ants were first seen in the southwest forest, but now they have spread to the East Forest. The queen bee sadly says that those ants might already be destroying their hives. Sejin feels moved and gently extends his hand, saying, "We will help you." The queen bee's eyes light up with hope as she asks in surprise, "Huh? Really?" Sejun smiles and says he already told them that everyone will live together. Kyung and the small former queen bee stand behind Sejun, ready for a new adventure and battle. The scene shifts. Theo has now reached the 38th floor and is riding on the back of a silver wolf, humming happily. He enjoys the fresh air but quickly corrects himself and says, "We didn't come here for a picnic." He reminds the silver wolf that Chairman Park Sejun has sent a special request, and they have to sell a lot of goods. The silver wolf thinks to himself that Theo is the one enjoying the most. Theo is passing along the road when he notices a crowd of hunters from a distance. In surprise, he says, "Nyong," and asks what is happening there. He sees that the hunters have surrounded his 3 fellow merchants. The hunters are very angry and are shouting at Oren because they wanted the auction method. They say that people are dying and they urgently need detox green onions, while Oren, nervously, is asking them to wait a little. Just then, Theo calls out, "Oren," and asks what he is doing. As soon as the hunters see Theo, they begin shouting with joy that the real cat merchant and Representative Theo has arrived. Theo is sitting on Alka Silver Wolf's back, and the hunters ask him where he had been all this time. Theo closes his eyes proudly and says, "Did you miss me that much, Nyang?" A blonde female hunter becomes happy upon seeing Hegel Black Wolf and calls him a giant puppy. Hegel, who has a scar on his face, starts sweating and thinks to himself that he is not a puppy but a black wolf. A hunter is happily hugging Alka Silver Wolf. Alka stands completely still and, looking at Hegel Black Wolf standing beside him, tells him, "Hegel, just stay calm and accept it." Theo silently jumps down from above Alka's head without saying anything. Theo is about to start an auction when the hunters plead with him to sell green onions first because of the poisoning crisis. Seeing their desperation, Theo softens and makes a big decision. He says, "Then let's do this. I will distribute 500 detox green onions for free." Hearing this, the entire crowd goes wild. For free, the hunters start pushing and shoving each other. Seeing this, Theo becomes furious and shouts loudly, "What are you all doing?" The hunters immediately freeze in fear, shocked to see this side of Theo. He orders that the poisoned patients be treated first and then everyone maintain order, as each person will receive only 5 onions. A powerful man in the crowd laughs and says a cat is doing a better job than humans. This is Han Tae-jun, leader of the Phoenix Guild and Theo's old friend. Theo happily greets Tae-jun and asks about Dong-sik. Tae-jun says Dong-sik waited every day, but missed Theo today. Everyone is amazed at how quickly Theo solved the problem. Tae-jun thanks Theo, but Theo says he has a condition. Theo reveals a new item, sturdy blade green onion. He explains that these are not for eating, but are as sharp and strong as real swords. He orders Tae-jun to grow them everywhere outside the tower. Tae-jun suspects this is Sejun's plan, and Theo confirms it. Hunters are shocked that Theo is giving these for free. Tae-jun asks if he's sure. Theo says it's fine and they have more products. But then his expression turns serious, and he says something shocking that all this is necessary because at this rate, their entire world will soon be destroyed. Hearing this, everyone turns pale. They ask in fear, "What? Our world will be destroyed?" Theo calmly nods and says just one word, "Yup." After this revelation, silence falls over the area, as the hunters realize their real battle is about to begin. Hearing that the world might end, all the hunters become extremely frightened and ask in shock whether their world is really going to end. Han Tae-jun stands before Theo with a serious expression and asks what this means, but Theo simply stays quiet. Theo recalls what Sejun had told him that if this news got out, it would cause panic among people, so he cannot reveal everything openly. Theo tells the hunters that if they work hard and follow his instructions, they can prevent this disaster. When the hunters don't receive more details, they become uneasy, but Han Tae-jun understands the seriousness of the situation. He orders his fellow hunters to sell the remaining detox green onions to gather funds and to start growing them in every empty space available. In a strict tone, Jun warns everyone that rumors about the end of the world must not spread, and tells them to stop unnecessary talk and get to work. All the hunters, filled with both fear and determination, shout yes together and agree to follow his orders. The scene shifts to the 99th floor. Climbing over rocky cliffs, Sejin becomes exhausted and groans. Grabbing onto a rock, he says to himself, "I can't believe the East Forest is such a rocky wasteland." Seeing his fatigue, Garen asks with concern, "Are you all right, Great Master?" Right after that, Garen, sitting on Sejin's head, warns, "You still have to face the fire ants. Don't you think you're overexerting yourself?" Sejin replies in a tired voice, "It's exhausting, but..." Then, with determination, he says, "I promise to help the poison bees of the East Forest. A man's word is his bond." Hearing this, the small red bear queuing becomes happy and shouts, "Dad, you're so cool." Sejin simply responds with a ha-ha to encourage him. The East Forest queen bee says, "Hang in there, we're almost there." Gathering all his strength, Sejin shouts and climbs up. As soon as he reaches the top, Sejin, exhausted, says, "We finally made it to the top." After reaching the top, Sejin takes a deep breath and says, "Phew, man, this is really..." Then, pointing toward the pit below, he asks, "It's total chaos down there, isn't it?" Below, thousands of fire ants have surrounded the poison bees' home. Seeing the fire ants harassing the poison bees' home below, Sejin's blood boils. Looking at his companions with determination, he says, "All right, let's do this." The small bear beside him asks in surprise what he's about to do. Smiling, Sejin explains that it's the result of eating magic cherry tomatoes grown during the blue moon, which awakened his inner power. As soon as Sejin eats one last tomato, system messages begin flashing before him. His mana level rises to 70, breaking all previous seals on his thunderstorm skill, which upgrades directly to level 3. Seeing his new power, Sejin says, "Nice," and makes his first move, Dark Cloud Creation, causing dark clouds to gather in the sky. As the clouds form, Sejin uses rainfall, bringing heavy rain down upon the fire ants. The ants struggle in the water, and Sejin says it's time to try the new skill he just unlocked. Clenching his fist, blue electric sparks begin to flash in his hands. Putting all his strength into it, he shouts, "Thunderbolt toss." A massive bolt of lightning descends from the sky directly onto the fire ants. The sheer force of the strike overwhelms them, and they collapse in an instant. Seeing this, the small bear jumps with joy and says, "Whoa, Dad, you're the best." Sejin gains 1000 EXP points and, taking a deep breath, says that although the lightning isn't as powerful as Iona's, it's enough for now. After the devastating thunderbolt attack, Sejin's condition worsens. He had poured all his mana into that single strike, causing him to lose balance and fall from the rocks. The small bear cries out in fear, queuing, and then screams, "Dad!" The Garen also panic, realizing he has used up all his mana. But as he falls, the poison bees catch him mid-air and gently lay him on the ground. When Sejin regains consciousness and groans, "Ugh!" the poison bee queen stands before him, thanking him as Lord Black Dragon. System messages begin to flash. The wild poison bee queen has decided to follow Sejin. His beekeeping skill increases rapidly, leveling up twice at once from level 4 to level 5. With a tired smile, Sejin says, "Hee hee. Leveled up twice in one go." As Sejin tries to get up, a bee suddenly shouts, "Wait, there are still some ants left." It prepares to attack them angrily, but Sejin looks carefully and says in surprise, "Wait, hang on, I don't think these are fire ants." He notices some strange blue ants hiding in a dark corner. Gently, Sejin calls them out and says he won't harm them. One of the ants comes forward and says that he is the one who defeated the fire ants. Then the system reveals that they are mushroom ants. Small mushrooms grow on their heads, and they are blue in color. Sejun looks at them in amazement and asks, "Mushroom ants?" He realizes that there are still many mysteries hidden in the East Forest. The mushroom ant trembles in fear and pleads, Please, spare us," to save its life. It quickly plucks a large glowing mushroom from its head and offers it to Sejun, saying, "Here, eat this." Sejun is stunned and asks, "Did you just pick that from your back? Is this even safe to eat?" The ant confidently replies that it is very delicious. Sejun examines the mushroom carefully and thinks it looks exactly like a poisonous mushroom. Just as he is thinking, the small red bear queuing suddenly jumps in, snatches the mushroom from Mushroom Ant's hand, and starts eating it. Panicked, Sejun shouts, "Ah, no, queuing," but it's too late. Fearing something might happen to queuing, Sejun hurriedly takes out detox green onions from his storage to counter any poison. He shouts, "Queuing, stop!" But Queuing smiles brightly and happily says, "But this is really delicious." Hearing this, Sejun and the bees are completely stunned. While happily eating the mushroom, Queuing tells Sejun, "Dad, you should try it too." Sejun is shocked that something that looks poisonous tastes so good to Queuing. One of the mushroom ants steps forward and offers Sejun a mushroom. He hesitates. "It's better not to eat this raw," he says, still uncertain. He realizes that these mushroom ants might actually be very unique and useful. To cook the mushroom, Sejun creates a flame of affinity in his hand. Seeing this, the mushroom ants scream in fear. "Fire!" Sejun immediately apologizes and asks if they are afraid of fire. One ant explains that they were enslaved by fire ants for a long time because of fire. Sejun reassures them that they are safe now and that he will extinguish the flame once the mushroom is roasted. His companion Garen warns him not to use too much mana, but Sejun says that the flame is actually a beneficial buff for him. The mushroom ants whisper among themselves that Sejun doesn't seem like a bad person and doesn't intend to harm them. Sejun happily roasts the mushroom and blows on it to cool it down. As soon as Sejun takes a big bite, he is astonished. At first, the taste is mild, but as he chews, the flavor deepens. He exclaims, This is. It tastes exactly like grilled pork belly." His companions and the mushroom ants are shocked that a mushroom could taste like meat. Seeing their surprise, Sejun realizes he hasn't introduced himself yet. Proudly raising his hand, where a dragon tattoo glows, he says, "I am the tower's intermediate administrator and the Black Dragon's proxy, Tower Farmer Park Sejun." Then, with a big smile, he asks the mushroom ants, "Would you like to work on my farm?" His eyes shine with excitement as he realizes he has found new hardworking companions. In a deserted office inside a brightly lit building, a sudden flash of light appears and a small bat materializes, and then sets off to find items as instructed by its master. In its mind, it repeats the master's list: ramen, kimchi, chicken, chocolate, and snacks. Flying through the office cubicles, the bat says it needs to find these shapes, the outlines forms of the items. After searching everywhere, it sits down on a desk in disappointment and says, "Sigh, there's nothing here that Master mentioned." It feels sad that it couldn't find ramen and doesn't want to return empty-handed. Suddenly, its eyes land on a cup holding some packets. It looks closely and jumps with excitement. "Coffee, I found it." Smiling, it says that its master had told it about this. Then it notices a box nearby and wonders, "What is this? Should I take it too?" Happy with the coffee packets and the box, it hopes its master will like them. In the next moment, it disappears in a flash of light. However, after it leaves, a security camera on the wall continues recording it with its red light. Back at the farm, the mushroom ants are working enthusiastically. Shouting, "Heave, ho!" They carry baskets filled with chili peppers. Seeing this, Sejun is amazed and says, "Wow, everyone is gradually learning farming." The white bunny standing nearby is startled by their strength and says, "They're all so strong." Sejun laughs and asks, "Are you feeling competitive?" Sejun extended his hand toward the farmer bunny. Sejun explains that they built this farm together from the beginning. He says, "As a senior farmer, I want you to teach these new friends how to work. I trust you the most. The bunny beams with joy and says enthusiastically, "Leave it to me," Sejun smiles, saying he can always rely on him. Just then, Theo the orange cat comes running from afar, shouting, "Chairman Park!" Sejun and Quing are happy to see him. Theo approaches and asks how he is and who these strange bugs carrying baskets are. Sejun, worried, grabs Theo and starts asking questions rapidly. "Theo, are you okay? Where are Iona and the others? Did you find Jerry? What happened to the Red Ribbon Kingdom?" Sejun shakes him in panic, but Theo calms him down by placing a paw on his face and says calmly, "Let's talk over a churu first." Churu is a popular liquid cat treat that comes in a long tube-like packet. Cats are crazy about this delicious and creamy snack. For Theo, it's not just a snack, but his hard-earned reward and greatest temptation. Hearing that everyone is safe, Sejun feels relieved and says, "Ah, what a relief." He happily declares that once everyone returns, they will throw a big party. Theo relaxes in Sejun's lap while eating churu. Lying comfortably in Sejun's lap, Theo finishes his report. He explains that he stopped on the 38th floor to sell crops to humans and distributed blade green onions as instructed. Sejun pats Theo's head and says, "Great job, Theo." Theo continues, saying he was shocked to see a white dragon in the Red Ribbon Kingdom's treasury, and when everyone stopped fighting, Payu Payu's ribbon began to glow. Surprised, Sejun asks, "A white dragon?" Suddenly, a deep voice echoes, "Hey, Sejun Park." Everyone is startled and sees a massive white dragon standing before them. The dragon holds out a bowl and demands, "Give me more of this." Theo flinches for a moment but quickly recognizes the dragon. Regaining his composure, he steps forward and angrily asks, "What are you doing here? Didn't Princess Payu Payu exile you?" The white dragon narrows its eyes at Theo, studying him for a second before responding. Then, with a sharp tone, it says, You're the one who was with the black rabbit, aren't you?" The tension instantly rises as everyone realizes they both recognize each other. Sejun calms everyone and firmly declares, "From now on, there will be no fighting on my farm." Quing the red bear supports him, saying that if everyone stops fighting and eats delicious food, they will all be happy. Sejun lifts Quing and calls him a good boy, while the white dragon continues demanding more food in the background. Suddenly, a bright flash appears in the sky and the bat returns, saying, "Master, I'm back." It brings the coffee packets and boxes with it. Sejun praises it and asks if it found anything good. The bat proudly replies, "Hee, yes here," showing what it brought, making Sejun exclaim in surprise, "Whoa, really?" Sejun happily examines the items and says, "This is instant coffee mix, very nice." Then he notices a green box in the bat's mouth and asks what it is. When shown, Sejun exclaims, "Wait, what? This is bingo rebab?" The bat explains that it brought it because the box had a fish on it, which Theo likes. Theo excitedly asks, "You were thinking of me?" But Sejun opens the box and explains that there's no real fish inside. The bat becomes worried and asks if it brought something useless. Sejun reassures it, "No, not at all. This is one of my favorite snacks." He enjoys eating it, saying its salty taste and crunchiness are amazing. Theo smells it and says the scent isn't bad either. Sejun asks everyone if they should make some coffee. Quing is also excited about coffee. The bat becomes very happy that its master liked the items and starts singing joyfully. "Bat, bat, thank you for bringing me out of the darkness, kind and amazing Sejun." Sejun laughs at its singing, and Quing says the bat is a good singer. Suddenly, Theo panics and shouts, "See, Chairman Park, help me." He has accidentally put the empty snack box over his head and can't see anything. Sejun bursts out laughing. "Pew ha ha ha, what are you doing?" Theo runs around blindly. When Sejun removes the box from Theo's head, he sees tears in Theo's eyes and asks in surprise, "Wait, are you crying?" Theo immediately clings to Sejun's leg and starts crying. Quing teases him, saying, "Your nose is running." Theo angrily denies it while sniffing. Sejin explains that a runny nose from fear is natural, but Theo gets upset and shouts, "I'm disappointed that even Chairman Park is making fun of me." In anger, Theo says he had brought a gift from the Red Ribbon Kingdom's treasury but won't give it anymore. Sejin tries to apologize and calm him down, but Theo sits stubbornly. Then Sejin uses another tactic and starts tickling him. Theo bursts into laughter, shouting, "Naya hang? Naya ha 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 ha." Unable to endure it, he gives in and says, "All right, I'll give it, meow." Theo takes out a paper scroll and gives it to Sejin. Surprised, Sejin asks, "What is this? A paper scroll?" Theo, feeling tired, says he doesn't know what it is. His paws just told him it was something special. Sejin carefully examines the scroll in his hand, wondering what it could be. Meanwhile, in the Black Tower's administrator area, Eileen manages to maintain her polymorph form for a short time. She happily says that this was possible because of Sejin's magic restoring food and wants to thank him in person. Suddenly, she looks into her magic orb and becomes alarmed. She shouts, "No, Sejin, don't open it." But by then, Sejin has already opened the scroll. System messages appear, revealing that it is the land deed of the 77th floor of the Black Tower. Since ownership hasn't been updated for 100 years, the system begins imprinting to register a new owner. Because Sejin's current location isn't suitable for imprinting, the system activates the summoning function. Confused, Sejin asks, "77th floor land deed, what does this mean?" In the next moment, a pillar of light surrounds him, and he suddenly disappears. Theo and Quing, standing on the farm, are stunned. Quing cries out in fear. Theo says in shock, "He disappeared?" The white dragon also looks at the spot where Sejin was standing, as silence falls over the farm, leaving behind only his belongings. With a blinding flash of light, Sejin suddenly vanished from the farm. One moment he had been standing peacefully on his land, and the next, his entire body felt as if it were being torn through space itself. When the dizziness finally faded and he opened his eyes, he found himself surrounded by towering trees and thick vines in the middle of a humid jungle. The air was suffocatingly hot, and strange cries echoed from every direction. Startled, Sejin stumbled backward and shouted, "What happened? Where am I?" Just then, a system message appears informing him that he is on the 77th floor. Shocked, Sejin wonders how he will get back. The system tells him that some illegal entities have occupied this farm, leaving Sejin stunned because the place looks like a withered jungle. Suddenly, Bat the bat appears on Sejin's shoulder. "I agree." Sejin nearly jumped out of his skin before realizing it was Bat, the tiny bat. Bat explains that he got teleported along with him. Sejin becomes worried that only the two of them are trapped here, but Bat enthusiastically says, "Don't worry, Master, I'll protect you." However, in the very next moment, a net suddenly drops from above and traps Bat. Sejin shouts, "Bat," but immediately another giant net falls over Sejin as well, imprisoning him inside it. Sejin groans, "Ugh," as he falls, unable to understand what is happening. Wrapped inside the nets, both of them are pulled high into the air, while Sejin can only scream. Seeing Sejin and Bat trapped in nets, a large group of monkeys begins shouting, looking up in shock. Sejin says, "Monkeys?" The monkeys carry him away to an unknown place. Meanwhile, back at the farm, Quing the red bear is crying and asking where Dad went. Theo is also worried about what happened. The white dragon explains that the magic of the land deed was activated and teleported Sejin to another floor. Angry, Theo asks how they can bring Chairman Park back. The dragon says he can go to the 77th floor, but then the black dragon Kellyan arrives and scolds him, saying he would only cause trouble, refusing to let him leave the 99th floor. The black dragon Kellyan is worried about Sejin. He tells Theo and Quing that he must stay behind and keep an eye on Kellyan, so he gives them something special. Extending his paw with blue lightning crackling around it, he says, "Take this." He gives them a compass that can detect the location of the intermediate administrator Sejin and guide them along the correct path. Theo remembers that Sejin had mentioned the 77th floor before. Kyung clenches his fist with determination and says, "I'll definitely find my dad." The two of them then set off to rescue Sejin. Back on the 77th floor, Sejin is imprisoned inside a wooden cage. The heat is unbearable and drenched in sweat. He says, "Ugh, it's so hot." But the heat isn't his biggest problem. Around the cage, monkeys are beating drums and making a huge racket. Sejin sits helplessly inside, trying to figure out what he should do next. Inside the cage, Sejin worriedly asks Bat-Bat if he's all right. Bat-Bat begins crying and apologizes, saying he was useless. Sadly, he says that if Kyung or Garen had been here instead, things would have turned out differently. Sejin comforts him and says he's happy Bat-Bat is with him. He believes the monkeys won't harm them immediately, but suddenly a quest triggers. He must reclaim the farm's land rights from the monkeys. Shocked, Sejin shouts, "A quest? Now?" The monkeys standing outside tell Sejin to stay quiet. One monkey asks, "Do you think the gorillas will take him?" Another replies that they'll try offering him first. Mocking Sejin, they say that although he looks strange, his shape is similar to theirs. One monkey laughs and says, "Looks like us? Since when? He's way uglier." Hearing this, Sejin turns red with anger. The monkeys continue talking among themselves, saying his appearance doesn't matter as long as he survives. Then they reveal a horrifying secret. After marrying the gorilla tribe chief's daughter, over 100 male monkeys have already died. Laughing, they say that maybe this human will live happily with her. Hearing this, Sejin is horrified, and lightning crackles behind him. Completely panicked, Sejin screams, "Marrying a gorilla?" Realizing how serious the situation is, he desperately shakes the cage bars while yelling, "I need to get out of here right now." Bat-Bat becomes frightened seeing his condition and can only say, "Master." Sejin now desperately tries to escape this marriage by any means possible. Sejin realizes they must escape quickly. Suddenly he shouts, "That's it, Bat-Bat," and asks if he can still use his power to travel outside the tower. Sejin explains that he should go outside and bring back anything that could help them. Bat-Bat hesitates nervously, but Sejin pleads, "Please, Bat-Bat, you're my last hope." Gathering courage, Bat-Bat says, "I'll try." Suddenly, a brilliant golden light bursts from the cage. The monkeys outside become frightened and shout, asking what the light is. When the glow fades, Bat-Bat has vanished from the cage, leaving behind only the rope that had tied him up. Sejin stands there with a relieved smile because his plan worked. Meanwhile, in the Red Ribbon Kingdom, Queen Payu Payu the White Rabbit delivers a passionate speech before her citizens. She says that their land, time, and dignity had all been taken from them. She apologizes for failing to protect them, but swears that no one will ever stand alone again and that they will support one another. She shouts, "For the Red Ribbon Kingdom," and all the rabbits begin cheering, "Long live Queen Payu Payu." After the speech ends, Queen Payu Payu steps aside and sighs in relief. She tells Black Rabbit and the others that she was so nervous her legs were shaking. But suddenly, she begins to stumble, as if her health is failing or exhaustion is catching up to her. Her companions watch in shock. After the speech, the Black Rabbit supports Queen Payu Payu. They say they will support one another so that nobody ever falls alone again. Nearby, the small and adorable Iona smiles while watching this scene. Just then, Vice Tower Master Ganoba approaches Iona and says, "You worked hard, Iona." Ganoba expresses surprise that Greed had even bribed the Inspection Bureau. Praising Iona, he says that wherever she goes, problems get solved. Iona says it's because of the Black Dragon's power, but Ganoba reminds her of the prestige of the Tower Master of Gravity. Embarrassed, Iona quietly mutters "Kukyu" to brush it aside. Then Ganoba relays an important message from the Magic Council. Information has surfaced about a holy stone or star fragment on the upper floors. Iona is startled because it's the same stone that fell from the sky long ago. Ganoba says the Mage Association must obtain it at all costs and asks Iona to come with him. When Iona asks which floor it's on, Genoba answers, the 77th floor. Below, we see a view of that floor featuring a massive stadium and the monkey's territory. Back inside the cage, an angry monkey demands from Sijin, "Tell the truth, where did that little bat go?" Nervously, Sijin denies knowing anything, saying, "I don't know," in his heart. Sijin prays that Bat will return with help as quickly as possible. So guys, that's where today's video comes to an end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I genuinely read every single one. You can also rate this video from 1 to 10, and if you have any suggestions, feel free to share them in the comments below. I'll see you in the next video, and the next part is going to be even more interesting.